Wake has already tallied one, looking for more. Scott changes speeds and gets it to go over, 1-1. Winne with the 2-run home run last night. At that point, giving Wake Forest a 5-2 lead. And Wake Forest had Stanford maybe even beyond on the ropes. They might have had Stanford on the mat, and the referee was starting to count. But as it turned out, Stanford able to play 4 in a wild bottom of the 8th and eventually win in extras last night. The 2-1 to Winne. Hard chop to Haskins, throw to second for 1, throw to first in time for the double play. Houston does advance over to third. So the work not quite done yet for the Cardinal, with Luke Costello coming to the plate.
And Houston almost ran right into Haskins, too. That one was a play where it wasn't hit all that hard. Any harder contact to Haskins, he might have thought about tagging out Houston and then going for a third out on the play.
Brings up Luke Costello, freshman from Erie, Pennsylvania. Costello hitting .317 on the year with 4 home runs and 16 RBI. Scott dealing the 1-0 pitch with Merrick Houston at third. This one's pumped right down Palm Drive, 1-1. Scott, on Sunday against Notre Dame, 4 1/3, 8 hits, 6 runs, all earned. A walk and 8 strikeouts. No decision. Part of a 3-game sweep by the Irish here in this building last weekend. At that point, entering that series, Notre Dame was ranked last in the standings. They were last in the standings, but that allowed them to move up a bit. And they've so far kept it going back at home against Cal so far this weekend. The 2-1. Curve misses upstairs, 3-1. Stanford, at the end of last week's action, had dropped 14 of 15 ACC games after a terrific start. Foul back, count full. Cardinal had actually started off 15-3 on the year, their best start since 2019, when they went 20-3 that season. But since then, very, very tough sledding. Just 6 wins in their last 20. But they got one last night. Sprinkles falling again here at Sunken Diamond. Payoff pitch on the way. Got him looking on the high strike. And Matt Scott gets Luke Costello, but Wake Forest gets the first run of the game. Wake 1, Stanford coming to bat. Let's give you the Stanford batting order right here and now. It begins with Trevor Haskins, the Cardinals' big bat. Brady Reynolds moving up to the 2 spot for today. Tatum Marsh batting third. Jimmy Nadai batting fourth. Rintaro Sasaki has moved up to the 5 spot. Had been batting sixth over the last week or so. Timo Becerra is currently batting in the 6th spot for today. Luke Lavin is batting 7th. Ethan Hott bats 8th. Designated hitter is Court McDonald. He is batting 9th for the Cardinal for today. Your lefties are Reynolds, Sasaki, Lavin, and McDonald. Wake Forest taking the field. In the outfield from left to right is Dravar Williams, Cam Nelson, and Matt Scannell. Around the horn, Cade Lewis, Merrick Houston, Dalton Wentz, and Jack Winne. Jimmy Keenan behind the dish for the Deacons. And Blake Morningstar, the sophomore from Wyalusing, Pennsylvania, on the mound for Wake. Blake is 6'4", 225. 4-1 record and 2.45 ERA, about to make his 11th appearance and start. 51 in the 3rd innings pitched, 36 hits, 20 runs, 14 of them earned. 59 strikeouts versus 19 walks. Opposing batters hitting just 188 against the young man who has so far been the most consistent in the starting rotation in Wake's weekend battery.
Yeah, Morningstar has really parlayed a strong end to the summer to a breakout year this year. So far, he's featured this year fastball, changeup, curveball. He'll cut and sink the fastball. Provides a lot of different looks. Had some nice ride on the four-seamer. He's a guy that can get a lot of swings and misses, but if he makes mistakes, Stanford definitely capable of taking those out of the yard.
Sounds like you've seen Blake in person before.
I have, yes. Same can be said for Matt Scannell and Hayden LeFew. The lefty threw a couple of innings yesterday.
Yeah. All those guys, plus Carson Trail himself, that voice you just heard. Cape Cod League in the building here at Stanford. Demon Deacons with a 1-0 lead already. And again, another theme, or one of the big themes from last night, raising its head again for Wake Forest, a chance for a big inning that doesn't exactly come to fruition. Did get the RBI single by Cade Lewis after the first three reached, but that was it. For the Cardinal, it begins with Trevor Haskins, the junior from San Jose. Doubled and homered last night. Haskins slashing .350, .407, .650. 12 home runs, that's a team high. 36 RBI, that's a team high as well. Haskins has been the big bat for Stanford for much of the season. Stanford hitting .305 on the year coming into this weekend series. Batting hasn't necessarily been the problem, although there have been some moments where they've gone cold for stretches, lacking extra base hits. Pitching has been the big problem for Stanford in their squad over the last month.
A lot of the time, the burden still falls on the offense, though. Talking to Dave Esker a couple of weeks ago, the offense is really, they hold themselves accountable for keeping the team in games where their pitching doesn't really perform, perhaps the way they want it to.
Morningstar ready to go. Cranked foul down the third base line. 0-1. Blake Morningstar against Boston College last weekend. 4 2/3, 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 of them earned. 3 walks and 2 strikeouts, Nate. No decision. Hit sharply to short. Houston to first. 1 away.
Couple of sinkers down in the zone there, inducing the ground ball. Stanford want to do a lot of damage against Morningstar. They have to wait for a pitch up. When he's living down there, especially with that sinker, that's exactly the kind of contact that he induces.
That brings up Brady Reynolds, sophomore from Bakersfield. Reynolds hitting .344 with 8 home runs and 27 RBI. Looking for his first base hit of this series. Boston College took 2 of 3 from Wake Forest last weekend. And Wake, much like Stanford, got off to a good start, especially in conference play. They actually began 6-0 in the ACC for the first time ever. 4-12 in league since. Reynolds goes around 1-2. And they had a tough stretch. And they've had to go on the road to face some tough opponents. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Got him. That just fell off the table, and Reynolds couldn't catch up with it.
To the plate. Left fielder.
And Morningstar starting that one on the outside corner, breaking down and in on Reynolds. That was the curveball there. Morningstar really flourishes when he commands his secondary stuff.
Tatum Marsh, the freshman from San Jose. So the first pitch misses outside for ball 1. Marsh hitting .376, leading Stanford with 3 home runs and 22 RBI. Entering the week, Marsh had the 4th highest batting average in the ACC. And he had his 7-game hit streak snapped last night, going 0 for 3, but he walked. So now he's reached in 34 straight games. Foul tip into the glove, 1-2. Wake Forest had to go to Clemson. They also played at Florida State and at North Carolina. Took 2 of 3 in Tallahassee, with a couple of run rule wins there. But Clemson and North Carolina, not so hospitable. Actually just goes into foul ground where Lewis was all over it. And the count stays at 1-2. That series against Florida State was in the first weekend in April. They dropped the first game 5-4, close one, but came back and hammered the Seminoles. 12-0 in 7, and then 17-2 in 8. Seminoles were ranked number 4 at the time. Tom Walter, the Wake Forest head coach, says that's been the high point of the season so far. But got swept at North Carolina the following week. Dropped 2 of 3 to BC the week after. And in danger of potentially dropping the series here at Stanford. But they're off to a good start here right now. Ahead 1-0, bottom of the first. Morningstar deals the 1-2. Hits the bag and bounces into right field. So Marsh is aboard to extend the inning.
And Wake Forest actually may have caught a break there. When it hit the bag, it popped straight up into the air and slowed to a roll. If that gets over the bag down the line, Marsh probably has 2, possibly has 3.
That was a scalder right down the line. As it is, Marsh on board. Jimmy Nadai at the plate. Nadai Jr. from Sydney, Australia, in case you couldn't tell from the men at work on the walk-up music blaring over the Sunken Diamond, PA. Nadai hitting .318 on the year, has 10 home runs and 35 RBI. Nadai left the yard on Monday in a win over UC Davis, also drove in 6 that evening. 1 for 5 with 3 strikeouts last night, however. Takes the first pitch a bit up high for ball 1. Sun trying to peek out a bit now. Plunked him right in the back. So Nadai takes first, and Wake Forest has hit 6 batters in this series. They plunked 5 last night.
To the first baseman, number 3, Rintaro Sasaki.
Here's Rintaro Sasaki, the freshman from Hanamaki, Japan. One of the most watched stories in college baseball this season. Sasaki hitting .270 on the year with 5 home runs and 31 RBI. Two on and 2 out. The transcendental pull power, which Wake Forest is recognizing with the shift they have currently on in their infield. With Cade Lewis, the only infielder between second and third right now. And Dalton Wentz, the second baseman, practically playing shallow right. But the pull power, the hitting tools, the gifts that Sasaki became legend for in Japan. Seen it at times, especially early in the season, as we have a conference on the mound now with Corey Mascara, the Wake Forest pitching coach, coming out to the mound to chat with Blake Morningstar. Seen it early in the season as he began the year and reached base from 14 straight games, hit a bit of a lull, didn't have an extra base hit for a 15-game stretch that ended last week, was able to get a home run on Sunday against Notre Dame, but it's been up and down for the freshman. But by and large, He's been super productive, has been an integral part of the team culture. He's having so much fun being a part of the squad and learning what it takes to compete on this level.
Yeah, and it's really hard to be a good freshman in the Atlantic Coast Conference, too, just to develop some kind of consistency. A lot of the time, the most beneficial thing for their development is just, even through those lulls, continuing to play them, continuing to have faith in them, that they'll adjust. And Sasaki showing signs of doing so with the homer last week.
Sasaki also had a single to lead off the 12th, and that eventually became the game-winning run. 2 on and 2 out. Sends that one bouncing down the first base line. Marsh at second. He reached on an infield single. Or reached on a single, I should say. Nadai was hit by a pitch. The 2-1 to Sasaki. Cracked right to Wentz. Up with it. Throws to first, but the throw is wide. And Sasaki reaches. Bases are loaded with 2 outs. Wentz just sailed that one a bit. Off the mark.
And I think we might have seen the effects of the sprinkles that just subsided here at Sunken Diamond. That one might have just been a wet ball kind of a scenario.
Fielding is not Wake Forest's strong suit. They came into this series with a fielding percentage of .959, 16th in the ACC. A reminder that there are 16 teams that play baseball in this league. Timo Becerra takes a crack at this one and fouls it off as it bounces and then rolls towards the Wake Forest dugout. Becerra, a senior from Clovis, California. And Timo batting .356 on the year, slugging .444. No home runs and 27 RBI. Fouls that one off, opposite field, down quickly, 0-2. Becerra, 2 for 5 last night, so he has a 6-game hit streak. Could be playable as Winne tries to chase, but it lands out of his range. Count remains at 0-2. Wake Forest struggles in the field, and it hasn't exactly been just one position. It's been all over the place. No balls, 2 strikes. Fastball just in front of it. Becerra, a soft foul.
That one up at 95. Morningstar reaching back for something extra there.
The 0-2. In the air to center field. It gets down for a base hit. Scores 1. The throw home. Safe. Nadai beats the tag. Slides around Jimmy Keenan and puts the Cardinal in the lead.
Excellent 2-strike hitting from Timo Becerra. Soft line drive to center field. The throw coming in from Nelson was right on the money. Except I think the gesture from Will Presswood was that the ball was not fully in the glove of Jimmy Keenan when the tag was applied. As a result, with the headlong dive, that allowed Nadai to score. And Stanford have made a 2-out rally here. They've made the mistakes hurt.
Brings up Luke Lavin. Will try to extend the inning and keep it going for the Cardinal. He looks at the first pitch and misses inside for ball 1. Lavin, a sophomore from Laguna Beach, came on as a defensive replacement for Charlie Somm midway through last night's game. Fouled off 1-1. Lavin on the year is batting .323. Has a home run and 5 RBI. That home run coming against UC Davis on April the 7th, the first of his career. Sasaki at second, Becerra at first. And a pitch a bit high and a bit outside as well, 2-1. "26 pitches already for Morningstar here in the first. And now it's 2-2.
Yeah, Morningstar's used all of his arsenal here in this first inning. At times having a little bit of inconsistency with his changeup, mixing up fastball, cutter, slider, sinker. All 5 weapons on display here in the first.
The 2-2. Crack to second, Wentz up with it and throws to first to retire the side. Timo Becerra with the 2-run single, putting Stanford ahead. 2-1 after 1 here on ACC Network Extra. Stanford with the lead as we head to the top of the second inning. Troy Clarity and Carson Trail taking you through this one on a pleasant Saturday afternoon. Maybe not as warm as you'd like it to be, maybe not as sunny as you'd like it to be, but still a great day to come out to the yard and watch a crucial series for both Stanford and Wake Forest. Scott now working with the lead. The first batter he faces in this frame is Dalton Wentz, switch hitter and a freshman from Madison Heights, Virginia. Wentz slashing .325, 407, 521. 7 home runs and 38 RBI. Part of me is somewhat hard to believe that Scott only threw 18 pitches in that first inning. But Wake Forest was a bit aggressive. Houston just took 2 pitches to leg out an infield single. Cade Lewis with the RBI single on the first pitch that he saw. As the 1-1 on the way from Scott. Just nicked foul, 1-2.
And I bet Scott's happy with the quality of contact he allowed as well. A lot of ground ball hits, a lot of weak contact. I think the only thing he'd change about that first inning is the walk.
Leadoff walk to Nelson to begin the game, as Wentz may have fouled that one perhaps off a foot. Tom Walter and the Wake Coaching Brain Trust out to talk to Dalton. Well, and I'm sure Matt Scott is also pretty pleased that he was able to induce a 5-4-3 double play to get himself out of a bit of a jam there after Cade Lewis became the third of 3 batters to reach, the first 3 to reach for Wake. And Lewis with the RBI single, and you're already starting to think, uh-oh, here we go. But then that 5-4-3 double play certainly changed the complexion of that top half of the first.
Yeah, nothing like a twin killing. Little tapper to third. Stanford able to go around the horn.
Wentz okay. Back in the box and about to face the 1-2. Scott tries a curve that starts high, stays high, outside as well, 2-2. Wentz with a stellar series at Florida State, 6 of 13 with 8 driven in, and he hit dingers in all 3 games of that series. But here he swings and misses, strike 3.
Next, right fielder Matt Scannell.
Matt Scannell comes to the plate. Grad transfer from Stone Oak, Texas. Transferred to Winston-Salem from Princeton. Scannell breaking out of a big-time slump last night. Overall in the year, Scannell hitting .263 with 6 home runs and 33 driven in. Scannell entered this series hitting .091, just 2 of 22 in 8 games previous. As he waves at this one, and the count evens out with 1 ball and 1 strike. But last night, Scannell 2 of 5 with a walk. He was one of the peskier bats for the Demon Deacons last night. Curve outside 2-1.
Yeah, Scannell's a guy who contributes enough with his defense. Got a great arm out in right field. Has played all 3 outfield spots at some point in his career. And it's at the point where that plus his leadership is enough to keep him in the lineup a lot of the time, even when he's not producing the way he wants to on offense.
Tom Walter, the Wake Forest head coach, told me before the series, we got to get Scannell going. And they were, to an extent, last night. The 2-2. Now 3-2 after the fastball misses low and outside. Scannell transferred after last season, had a great career at Princeton. The team's RBI leader as a sophomore, started every game, and also made 9 appearances on the mound as a junior. But here, Scott loses Scannell, who takes first base.
The catcher,
Jimmy Keenan, a junior from White Plains, New York. But last year he was all Big East first team with St. John's. He was playing for the Red Storm in baseball. Keenan so far on the year hitting .220, 4 home runs and 18 RBI. Tom Walter also spotlighting him as someone that Wake needs to get going in the lineup. Demon Deacons, 55 of 64 in the stolen base department so far this season. Scott drops it down and misses, 1-0. Scannell's 3 for 3 in stolen bases so far. Sun making an appearance here. So that one misses just a little bit high, 2-0. High strike call by home plate umpire Will Prestwood. Keenan doing big things last year for St. John's. How'd their men's hoops team do this year?
I think pretty well.
Oh, okay. I understand that's kind of a big deal when they do well. Well, I haven't tried to frame it. Doesn't get the call. Count goes to 3-1. Been a long time since the Red Storm was on that stage nationally that they found themselves on. Back 40 years. 3 balls and 1 strike. And now the count full. The 3-2 pitch from Scott. Cracked down the third base line, but travels just foul.
Fastball down in the zone. Scott has loved to use that splitter against lefties, and he's had a pretty good feel for it so far. Let's see if he goes back to it here against a right-handed batter. Seen him lean on the curveball a fair amount, as well as that little cutter slider.
Scannell at first. Keenan facing the 3-2 pitch. Runner going. Swing and a miss. Throw down to second is off target. Third strikeout of the afternoon for Scott.
Next, left fielder Javar Williams.
Here's Javar Williams, sophomore from Dartmouth, Massachusetts. A lot of guys from the Bay State on this Wake Forest roster. I'm going to have to do a bit of a deeper dive on that at some point this weekend. Williams hitting .259 on the year. 2 home runs, 22 driven in. bounces away. And the wild pitch allows Scannell to head to third uncontested. Stanford with 5 wild pitches as a staff last night. And now Thomas Eager, the Stanford assistant coach, Kathy Wolf assistant coach, oversees pitching for the Cardinal, is out to the mound, brings in the rest of the infield as well. Tying run 90 feet away as we're here in the top of the second inning. Wake scored first. Stanford scored twice in the bottom of the first, and here we are with Wake trying to A, extend the inning, B, tie it up, or perhaps C, overtake the Cardinal here.
Cardinal bullpen right now is empty. So this meeting just trying to get Scott back down to earth. Cam Nelson on deck, top of the order. Williams reached base 4 times yesterday, drew 3 walks, but I think still he's the guy you want to face in this scenario.
And Williams has done a terrific job of turning the lineup over for much of the season. 1 ball and no strikes with a runner at third, 2 out. And now 2-0 the count to Williams. Laser down the first base line, but that just goes foul.
.99 off the bat.
That's all?
Yeah, I know, right? Really scored that one up. Just got around on a curveball.
Two balls and 1 strike. Fastball misses, maybe just a bit low. 3-1. Williams hit a 2-run triple against Duke last year. With Scannell 90 feet away, the tying run. Williams walks. 3 Ks, 3 BBs for Matt Scott. And back up to the top of the order we go. Cam Nelson with the leadoff walk to begin the game. Later came around to score on the RBI single by Cade Lewis. Nelson was battling a broken finger early in the season. Kind of took him a bit of a while to get rolling, but had a terrific series in Tallahassee a few weeks ago to kind of get him back on track. Nelson's also appeared on the mound a time or two during his Wake Forest career. Not so far this year as Nelson looks at a high strike, but pitched a scoreless inning against Florida State in last year's ACC tournament. So the multi-talented Cam Nelson. Runners at the corners, 2 outs. No balls and 1 strike. And this one is hit in the air to left field. Marsh on the move and making the grab in fair territory for the 3rd out of the half inning. Again, Wake with a chance. Leave a runner at 3rd. And it's a 2-1 Stanford lead, bottom of the 2nd, coming up in just a moment. The 8-9-1 batters due up for the Cardinal in the bottom of the 2nd inning. Stanford with a 2-1 lead over Wake Forest, game 2 of this 3-game set. Bottom 2nd begins with Ethan Hott stepping to the plate. Hott, the sophomore from Paradise Valley, Arizona. which seems like a fitting place to come from if your last name is Hott. That's H-O-T-T. Hott, slashing 304, 385, 435 with 2 home runs and 16 RBIs. He sends this one, pushing it down the right field line and foul. Blake Morningstar needed 28 pitches to get through that first inning. An inning that, even though Stanford got 2, still maybe could have been a little bit bigger, although they did get that 2-out rally. The first 2 batters retired quickly before the Cardinals struck for a couple. Gorgeous curve thrown by Blake Morningstar. Strike 2 called. Smacked back up the middle. Base hit. Leadoff single for Ethan Hott.
And a superb job of adjusting pitch to pitch there. Buckled at a curveball, thrown on the previous pitch, sees it again, flicks it right back up the middle. That's what is really an indicator of being able to adjust at a high level. It's being able to do that pitch to pitch, not just at bat to at bat.
Yeah, because that strike 2 curve was something else. Court McDonald, the designated hitter, shows bunt and pulls back. McDonald, the sophomore from Arlington, Texas, is hitting .209 on the year with no home runs and 6 RBI, but that 6th run batted in came last night, and it was the walk-off single to send Stanford into the win column at 11:08 p.m. local time last night. Runner going, McDonald just gets a piece of it, and the count goes to 1-1.
Might have put the hit and run on there. Unfortunately, that hit went right into McDonald's front foot.
That's not ideal. McDonald missed 21 games earlier this year with a hamstring injury, returned on April 1st. Runner going again, and this one's hit past Wentz and into center field for a base hit. Hott motors over to third, and the run and hit works to perfection. Runners at the corners with nobody out. And after going through an 0 for 24 slump, Court McDonald now has his 6th base hit of this week.
Yeah, he's really come alive. Tweaked his batting stance a little bit, and he's really seen the ball well, especially down in the zone. Dug that one out and roasted that right through the shift.
Back to the top of the order we go. It's Trevor Haskins, who goes opposite field, fly ball, chasing it down and making the catch, and crashing into the fence. Matt Scannell with the throw to second, and he gets McDonald there. Meanwhile, Ethan Hott comes across and scores. So a lot happening on that sequence. But Stanford overall will take how it went. It's 3-1.
Yeah, McDonald being a little bit aggressive there on the send by Andre Mercurio, the first base coach, but Scannell's got the best arm out of any fielder on either team. Former two-way player, 1 hop throw to second in time.
The outfield assist by Scannell. But another RBI for Haskins, who just keeps racking them up with 3 already so far in this series. Brady Reynolds fouling off the first pitch he sees. Reynolds struck out swinging back in the first. (9-6) on that last put out if you're scoring at home. Morningstar tries inside, doesn't get the call. 2 balls and 1 strike. The 2-1. With the bases empty, just fouls it. Just got a little bit of contact on it. 2 balls and 2 strikes now to Reynolds, who singled in his first career at bat. That was against Penn State last year. 3-2 as Morningstar tries low and doesn't get it. Inside corner gets the punch out. And the side is retired. Sac fly RBI for Trevor Haskins extends Stanford's lead. It's 3-1 after 2 on ACC Network Extra. Great to have you with us on this Saturday afternoon on ACC Network Extra. Stanford with a 3-1 lead over Wake Forest. On the call for you today is Troy Clarity, that's me. And for the third and the fourth, it's Carson Trail, that's him.
Thank you very much, Troy. 2, 3, 4 hitters due up against Matt Scott, beginning with the shortstop, Merrick Houston. Houston cooling off recently, especially in big spots, but here starting things off against the Cardinal right-hander. And he fouls that in and out of the glove of Lavin. 1 strike the count. Stanford saw Houston back when these two teams played each other in the College World Series a couple of years ago, but Houston a very different player since then. 0-2. Back when they first saw him, he turned the game-ending double play. Game 1 of the College World Series. Really a defense-first guy, but his bat's come alive, developed very well over the past couple of seasons. There he goes down on the curveball. Scott already with his 4th strikeout, and there's 1 gone ahead of Cade Lewis.
That's a good curve from Scott. Kind of starts high, you think it's going to stay high, but that one just dropped right down, and Houston couldn't connect with it.
Now Cade Lewis, the transfer from Butler University. And Lewis takes down.
Yeah, that was the first time that Stanford and Wake Forest have ever met on the baseball field. June 17th, 2023, the first game for both of those teams in Omaha.
Want to know the count. That one's ripped past the reach of Sasaki down the right field line. Lewis turns the corner and he stops. The throw comes in on a hop from Reynolds, and that holds him to a 1-out single.
And already Lewis with multi-hit games in both contests so far this week. And it was funny talking to Tom Walter. He said, yeah, Cade's kind of been in a little bit of a funk lately. And it felt kind of weird seeing that Cade was coming into this series with a .428 batting average and knowing that he has not gone under 400 at any point this year. Lewis appears to be working out of it a bit.
Now here's Jack Winne. One of the bigger swings of the bat yesterday, 2-run home run in a game that went 12 innings. Here's a slow ground ball hit to third. Haskins slings it, and it's in time. 2 away, and Lewis moves up to scoring position.
Of course, slumps can be relative, right? You know, Cade goes 1 for 4. Oh man, he's not swinging the bat as well as he usually does. I go 1 for 4. That's a cause for celebration. So it's all relative.
Now here's Costello. He took a called third strike his last time up. Highly touted freshman out of Pennsylvania. Scott misses down for ball 1.
Try that curve once again.
Scott with that over-the-top release point typically works north to south. There's Nadi holding on Lewis. And it's 2-0.
Yeah, that game between Stanford and Wake Forest back in 2023. Card were in control. Things were looking great heading into the 7th inning. And then Mother Nature had a different idea. Lightning delay halted things for about an hour and a half, and all the momentum that Stanford had at that point just kind of withered away. And Wake Forest able to score twice late in the game and win that one. Stanford, unfortunately, with a short stay in Omaha that year, going 0-2.
2 balls the count. And a check swing. Got a piece of it and dribbled it right behind Luke Lavin. 2 balls and 1 strike.
It's funny. Stanford's facing Wake Forest this weekend. They were in the same Men's College World Series in 2023. Stanford faced Notre Dame last week. They were in Omaha together in 2022.
Three and 1 the count. Stanford and Notre Dame, of course, on opposite sides of the bracket.
Yep.
That was the year that Notre Dame defeated the seemingly inevitable Tennessee Volunteers that year.
Golden Dome over the Rocky Top.
The 3-1 to Costello. Hammered to deep center. Hot, racing after it. He gets there to make the catch on the warning track. Allowed out of the inning, or allowed third out of the inning. Costello goes down, and so do the Demon Deacons. Cade Lewis reaches on a single, makes it as far as second base, and that's all. We go to the bottom of the third. 3-1 Stanford over Wake Forest on ACC Network Extra. Tatum Marsh gets us started here in the bottom half of the third inning. Marsh started a 2-out, 2-run rally back in the first inning. He singled and came around to score on a Becerra base hit. 3, 4, 5 hitters due up against Blake Morningstar. And Morningstar ahead in the count. 94 miles an hour with the fastball. Marsh in the middle of a very impressive freshman season. Entered the weekend as the ACC's 4th leading hitter. Able to check his swing there. No contact on that. Hit off the glove of Keenan.
And David Esker said that Tatum did terrific in practices in January. Said it just made it too hard for the coaches not to play him.
And his success has been as sustained as it's been almost surprising. I'd say surprising just because, you know, in a highly touted freshman class, Marsh not the guy who necessarily drew the most headlines. He hits one foul. Stays alive against Morningstar.
Another freshman for Stanford, Charlie Bates, was off to a fantastic start, but got hurt. Opener against Cal.
1-2, ripped out into the alleyway. A long run, and that falls base hit. Nelson cuts it off, gathers and throws it in, but Marsh has a leadoff double. So Marsh, 2 for 2 after reaching base twice yesterday. And that brings up Jimmy Nadi. Stanford trying to score for the 3rd straight inning against Morningstar.
Yeah, a little Marsh muscle there as he just pushed that one into right center with a bit of distance, too. And you still see Marsh, the freshman, putting together good at-bats, productive at-bats, and giving his teammates opportunities to try to knock him in.
Right on right, here's Nadai. And he dribbles one foul. 2 in the first, 1 in the second. Man at second, nobody out here in the third. Stanford showing signs of getting to Blake Morningstar. He's been a hard guy to get to overall this year. But 4 extra base hits allowed in his most recent outing against BC. The most he's allowed in an appearance all year. No balls and 2 strikes. Morningstar ahead of Nadai.
Yeah, Blake against Virginia Tech back on March 30th. 7 innings, 2 runs, just 1 earned. No walks, 10 strikeouts. Stellar. But Wake couldn't hold on to a 3-2 lead after 7 innings, so he got a no decision for his efforts that day.
Trying to take care of Jimmy Nadai. A high chopper. Houston's got it. Low throw to first, and it gets by Winne. Marsh comes to third. He stops. Nadai advances to second. And the defensive struggles for Wake Forest have resurfaced. Second and third for the Cardinal with nobody out, trying to extend a 2-run lead.
And Houston kind of double clutched the throw there a bit. Not sure if he was trying to adjust his target on the run. But by the time he did, he just uncorked a wild one. And the struggles for Wake in the field continue. Second error for them so far today.
That's their 4th error in this series. Couple last night certainly made the difference in a game that wound up going 12 innings. Sasaki up now. He waves and misses. No balls and 1 strike. Sasaki, the preseason ACC Freshman of the Year, does not need a hit to get a run home. As the 0-1. On the inside corner. 94 miles an hour. Timo Becerra waiting on deck, has 2 of Stanford's 3 runs batted in. 2-strike pitch. Check swing. Keenan sprawls to get after it and knocks it down. That one was ticketed to the backstop, and Keenan might have saved a run.
And so crucial because one of the defining characteristics of Sunken Diamond is it's even more than ample. It's just overly spacious foul territory here, all around, including behind home plate. I gotta get someone to get a tape measure and tell me. Although I remember hearing someone say it might be 70 feet from behind home plate back to the backstop. And I'm getting confirmation on that. So, in any case, the point is there's a lot of room, so your catcher better be on point.
Still nobody out. Would not be surprised in those scenarios to see Stanford be a little more conservative. Swing and a miss. Tied him up with the pitch down and inside. And a crucial first out of the inning ahead of Timo Becerra.
Yeah, that's a big pitch by Blake Morningstar, just crossing up Sasaki there a bit, hitting his spot, getting Sasaki to swing and miss.
Here's Becerra. 2 for 5 yesterday, 1 for 1 today, and he's driven in 3 runs on the series. Stanford trying to win their first series in conference in over a month. Big hole in the right side, and a big curveball misses wide.
Yeah, we've seen some sweeping movement at times from Morningstar's curve.
Thrown the kitchen sink through his first 2 innings, and Becerra hits that one foul to even the count.
You mentioned he learned as much as he could, soaked in as much as he could from Chase Burns. Not a bad person to sponge off of, as Burns was the ACC co-pitcher of the year last year. Pitcher outright of the year.
2-1. And while, not everybody can throw 100 miles an hour, but at the same time, talking to him about the mechanics of it, the mentality of pitching, an invaluable resource, as Becerra's elbow guard kind of comes undone as he swings and misses. Or rather, swings and fouls one off.
And Wake had a chance to do something neat when they got into town. They made the flight out here on Thursday, the 6 a.m. flight, got here, had a chance to get into quick practice, and then head up to Sacramento to watch one of their old teammates in one of his first Major League Baseball games.
Nick Kurtz.
Yep.
Just made his debut for the Athletics. 2-2. Off the glove of Keenan. And there's that room behind home plate coming into play there. Marsh scores and Stanford extends the lead.
Well, and right now, Wake Forest doing pretty much everything you can to just hand your opponent runs. The E6, and now the run scored on the pass ball.
Indeed ruled a pass ball and an unearned run. That brings the infield in. Count full to Timo Becerra. Morningstar out of the windup. The payoff. Late swing and a foul. Challenge fastball at 95 miles an hour. And that almost hits Becerra, and it's ball 4. First walk allowed by Morningstar, and that brings up Luke Lavin. No action down in the Wake Forest pen. A couple of guys getting stretched out, but nobody throwing. Stanford 2 in the first, 1 in the second. Can score a second run here in the third without a base hit. Stanford and Wake Forest. Cardinal in the middle of an 8-game homestand. They wrapped that up with a Monday game against Monday game against Sacramento State, I believe.
You are correct.
Yes, 1 ball, no strikes to count. I had it written down that they were playing Santa Clara, but I was a week ahead of myself.
You're ahead of your time.
Infield playing for 2. Lewis shallow at third. There goes the runner from first. Pitch swung on and missed. Pump fake to second. Likely a hit and run play there. Becerra in with a headlong dive. And that erases the double play possibility on a force, bringing the infield back in. Nadai at third. Becerra at second, 1 gone. Lavin takes high.
Well, and Stanford came into this series having stolen just 11 of 32 bases. 11 of 32. Think about that. They're 3 for 3 so far in this series.
And now a conversation amongst the members of the umpiring crew. Lavin swung through that pitch, and a very brief conversation as to whether he interfered with the throw or with a possible throw from Jimmy Keenan. Very brief conversation. Meeting almost immediately adjourned. 2 balls, 1 strike. 2 on, 1 out. 1 across. Curveball bounced foul. And again, Morningstar pitching for the strikeout. Morningstar continues to work hard. Entering this at-bat up over 60 pitches. Now the count full to Lavin. Base still open. Ethan Hott, the man on deck, singled and scored back in the second.
Third full count for Morningstar so far today. He's gone full on back-to-back batters now.
That one's ripped to right field. Scannell's got a good arm. He backs up to make the catch. Here comes the throw all the way to third. That's cut off. And a sacrifice fly for Luke Lavin extends the Cardinal lead. It's 5-1. Some loud contact off the left-handed batting sophomore. That plate's another. And with one already getting to the backstop, Becerra's 90 feet might loom large under similar circumstances. Here's Ethan Hott now. Nice piece of two-strike hitting against Morningstar back in his first plate appearance. Here he squares the bunt and takes a strike.
And a superb and sublime choice of walk-up music. Paid the Cost to Be the Boss by James Brown. Outstanding young man.
Hott's a guy who has a solid appreciation for music, a self-taught pianist. Jack of all trades, as they say.
A Renaissance man, maybe?
Yes, indeed. Court McDonald on deck. Here's a foul. Heard somewhere that he was a choir boy in high school, or perhaps is currently one or the other.
And they meant it literally?
I believe so. Well, I certainly would not be one to judge. 2-2 pitch. Got him. Boring down and in on the hands. But Stanford get two more. 2 in the first, 1 in the second, and now 2 more as we end the bottom of the third. 5-1 Stanford leading Wake Forest here in Game 2 on ACC Network Extra. Carson Trail and Troy Clarity with his. We begin the middle third of this ball game. Stanford's been doing their fair share of scoring and then some. 5 runs across the first 3 innings against Blake Morningstar. And now Dalton Wentz, or rather Austin Hawk, a pinch hitter, starting things off. Austin Hawk, his brother Tommy, played for Wake Forest on that College World Series team that Stanford faced a short while ago. And Hawk takes inside for ball 1.
So this is a bit of a switch up. Hawk, a junior from Oak Island, North Carolina, former Tar Heel.
1 ball and 1 strike.
Tommy Hawk, by the way, was drafted by the Cleveland Guardians organization a couple years ago. I'm told there's another draft of some sort happening this week.
It's happening right now, I believe.
Yeah.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
They are, looks like 237 picks in with 20 to go. So they're in the 7th round.
1-2 pitch. Swing and a foul off of Will Presswood. And the home plate umpire, where's that one fairly routinely.
By the way, congratulations to Alec Iomanner, the Stanford wide receiver. Selected in the 4th round, 136th overall this morning by the Tennessee Titans. So congrats to Alec.
Another 1-2. Split-fingered pitch misses high and tight.
So that could be an intriguing combination to watch. Alec had better be ready with the scramble drill as a wide receiver with Cam Ward, the future at quarterback for the Titans.
Those guys played against each other a couple of times in Pac-12 play back in the day.
Yep. A couple years ago, the 2023 season, Stanford 10-7 winners over Washington State when Cam Ward was taking snaps for the Cougs. And part of me tends to think that maybe the Titans looked at each other and said, hey, wait a minute, Travis Hunter's in our division now, man. Who can we get that Travis Hunter can't cover? Get Alec Iomanner on the phone.
That one's launched foul. It hits the lamppost and ricochets back into play.
Doink.
Still 2-2. Hawk leading things off for the Deacons. 5-1 Stanford with the lead. And he flies that one into shallow center. Wynn pushes that out to Hott, who now comes in, and he makes the catch.
Yeah, a bit of a breeze now starting to pick up ever so slightly for the first time this afternoon. Sun is currently mostly out right now, as we've had a mixture of sun and clouds throughout much of the afternoon. But a slight breeze now starting to pick up just a bit.
Here's Matt Scannell. Made it as far as third base in his only other plate appearance today. Walked, stole a base, and advanced to third on a wild pitch. Scott from the windup catches the bottom of the zone. 89 miles an hour, that's the fastball. Scott has looked very composed out there. Good feel for his secondary stuff, as good as we've seen all season. And now Will Presswood, the home plate umpire, exchanging some words with the Wake Forest dugout. Not liking the strike call there. One strike the count on Scannell.
Presswood riding it up. Had a bizarre situation in the top of the ninth yesterday with the bases loaded. Stanford trying to hang on to a one-run lead.
Hit high and foul. Got that one off the end of the bat, and it lands on the concourse.
And Torrin O'Haron was ruled to have come set. He went to his mouth while he was on the rubber, and he was ruled to have come set before disengaging and then trying to come to the plate, and that ended up being an automatic ball. The bad news is that it was a 3-1 count at the time, so that walked in the tying run.
0-2 up and away, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
And O'Haron had apparently been warned earlier in that plate appearance.
Scannell takes that one just outside, went back to the splitter. And that's as good of a take as the Deacons have had all afternoon against that pitch.
Yep.
Scannell with a lot of power. Hits that one sharply, past the sliding try of Sasaki down the right field line. Scannell's got speed. He's around second. And he drops anchor as Reynolds comes in with a good throw. Might have been thinking 3 there, but Scannell content with a 1-out double.
Scannell scalding that one down the first base line, and I think it's safe to say he's broken out of that funk that he was in coming into this series.
Scannell's a guy, when he heats up, he can really carry an offense even. Now here's Jimmy Keenan, a guy still scuffling at the plate, looking to continue turning things around. Even though he hasn't had an all that eye-popping average, his on-base percentage is still up above 380. Still finding ways to be productive. Wake, one of the best teams over the past handful of seasons at drawing walks. They are a team that controls the zone very well on both sides of the ball. 1-0 to Keenan. Grounded, foul.
Demon Deacons led the ACC in on-base percentage entering this week for 30.
Keenan digs back in. Transferred from St. John's, where he spent 2 seasons, all Big East first team. One of the most productive hitters on the team both of the 2 years. Paired that with some consistent defense, and Demon Deacons have another fantastic mid-major addition. 2-1.
Well, and what's haunted Wake Forest so far in this series, as we're almost halfway through, is an inability to get big innings, or at least to score multiple runs when they have chances to.
Step off throw to second. Too late to get Scannell.
The 2-run home run in the 7th inning last night, but that's it. 1 in the 2nd, 1 in the 4th, 1 in the 6th, 1 in the 9th. They left him loaded in the 9th last night, left him loaded in the 11th, and they've left 4 on so far in this game.
Strike 2 call on the outside corner.
Got the one across in the top of the first, but that could have been bigger if not for a big 5-4-3 double play. Left 2 on in the 2nd, left 1 on in the 3rd, in scoring position. So Wake just insists on not capitalizing on opportunities, giving Stanford chances of its own.
Swing and a miss. Got him with the splitter. That's the 5th strikeout in 3 2/3 for Scott to bring up Javar Williams.
Well, that's a bit of Matt Scott at his best. Kind of unveiling the arsenal there a bit and then firing that splitter that Keenan just can't quite find.
That's an offering that he just keeps going back to against righties and lefties. Now Williams. He walked back in the 2nd inning. Scott's allowed 3 walks this game. Check swing, appeal, no, says Brian Miller.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Wake Forest has been handing Stanford opportunities, but just because you're handed chances, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you take advantage of them. Stanford's done a fantastic job of taking what Wake Forest has been handing them, especially so far in this game.
2 balls and no strikes.
Couple errors, passed ball, hit batter. All those things you need to do to help your opponent win ball games. Wake's done it so far.
Hitters count pitch, and it's 3-0. Cam Nelson, who flied out the couple of runners on in the 2nd, would be next. Scannell, a 1-out double, remains at 2nd. Base open at 1st, with Scott working from the stretch. Scannell still dancing off 2nd, and an outside strike called.
Come on.
3 balls and a strike. That one only at 88 miles an hour. Just a year ago, Scott was in the mid-90s. Stuff not quite as eye-popping as last year. 3-1 inside ball 4. Williams has his 2nd walk.
Well, in some ways, that's kind of Scott in a nutshell, right? Fantastic pitch sequence against Keenan, and then comes back next batter and walks the 9th hitter.
Still no action out in the Cardinal bullpen, although the infield now convening to talk to Scott.
Oh, fuck.
Cam Nelson, the speedy leadoff hitter, up. One big swing of the bat can really get Wake Forest back into this one. Stanford have scored in every inning. Wake has done nothing but strand runners since the 1st inning, but a chance for the Demon Deacons to really balance the scales here.
Yeah, again, it's worth noting. The Deeks stranded 16 base runners last night. 16. You figure you get walked 14 times. Opposing pitchers issue 4 wild pitches. You're sitting in terrific territory. But Deacons just could not come through when it absolutely needed to most last night, and have had problems doing the same so far in this one. They've already left 4 on board in this one.
That one just off the plate. And it's a ball and no strikes.
77th pitch by Scott this afternoon.
Really laboring through the first 3 2/3. The 1-0. Nelson takes down and in.
What?
Scannell at 2nd, Williams at 1st. Good speed on the bases. Ball in the gap could score them both. And the 2-0. Bounced, foul. Nice barehanded play by the Wake Forest first base coach.
Yeah, nice job, Matt Wessinger. Handled with aplomb.
The 2-1. Hit softly. This one stays fair. Sasaki takes it himself. Once again, the Deacons threaten, but they do not score. We go to the bottom of the fourth. Stanford 5, Wake Forest 1 on ACC Network Extra. Nine 1-2 hitters due up for the Cardinals as we begin the bottom of the fourth inning. Court McDonald, who's been seeing the ball really well, takes down and in for ball one. McDonald, 3 for 4 yesterday, 1 for 1 today. Takes that one in tight, and it's 2 balls and no strikes. McDonald facing Blake Morningstar, still out there. Needed over 70 pitches to get through the first 3 innings. Third baseman in, that's Lewis. And the 3-0 count to the Cardinal designated hitter. Stanford scoring 5 in the first 3 innings against Morningstar. Albeit they had some help from Wake Forest defensive mistakes. So far, of the runs that Morningstar has allowed, only 1 of them have been earned. Count fills to McDonald. Top of the order up next. And the payoff. Strike 3 called. So Morningstar battles all the way back. 5th strikeout for the Demon Deacons right-hander, and that brings up Trevor Haskins. 5-1 Stanford here in Game 2. Stanford trying to win their first conference series since March. Stanford have really fallen on some rough times in conference. Getting swept at home by Cal, swept on the road at Virginia. Have not quite found their footing as that one finds Trevor Haskins. Second hit batsman of the game from Morningstar. This game, Stanford have made the mistakes hurt. Errors helping with the 2-out rally in the first, and a hit batsman, I might add. An error helping another 2-run rally back in the third.
And Wake Forest has hit 7 batters this weekend. And we're only halfway through this second game of this series.
Swing and a miss by Brady Reynolds.
It's funny you mention how long it's been since Stanford has won an ACC series. You think back to after the Cardinal had a great showing in Chapel Hill, becoming the first team to shut out North Carolina in their own home ballpark in 6 years, and then handling Duke rather easily. They're 15-3. They're a top 15 team. Everything is cool, and then all of a sudden the California Golden Bears came in here and just swept Stanford out of its own stadium. And Stanford's they've been close. They've had a few hard luck losses along the way, but they have not been the same since.
Rolled to second. Wentz cannot field it cleanly and his only plays at first. So Haskins into scoring position. Reynolds now an 0 for 3 start to his day. And that brings up Tatum Marsh. Talked about all the Wake Forest hit batsmen in this series. Possibly even more surprising, none of them have been Tatum Marsh. Guy who has more hit by pitches than strikeouts this year. Marsh off to an outstanding start this game, 2 for 2, including a double. And a sinker finds its way on the outside corner for a strike. Haskins at second, Marsh's former high school teammate. That one's bounced just foul. Might have hopped over the green safety bag there. Marsh hit one off the bag in his first plate appearance. And now that might have moved Winne over toward the line. Big hole in the right side still with Wentz holding on Haskins. One out hit batsman advanced to second on the ground ball. 2 strikes the count on Marsh. Check swing, yes he went. Will Presswood makes the call himself. Marsh goes down and so do the Cardinal. First inning of 4 in which they have not scored. We go to the 5th. It's 5-1, Stanford leading Wake Forest on ACC Network Extra. Top of the 5th inning, Merrick Houston starts things off for the Demon Deacons, followed by Cade Lewis and Jack Winney is now with the play-by-play. Here's Troy Clardy.
Thank you, Carson. 5-1. Stanford with the lead. Game 2 of this series. Game 1 taken by the Cardinal last night in 12. As Merrick Houston stands in and launches ball 1. Houston infield single in the first and struck out in the third. Sends this one high to center field. It's hot. He makes the grab.
And Stanford have cooled off Houston so far this series. He's been the guy to get the big hit a lot of the time this year. And now that he hasn't really been producing in the same way, Wake Forest, you can see it in the amount of runners that they've left on. They have missed him at his best.
Still haven't quite solved Cade Lewis to this point, however. Lewis with a couple of singles so far today. Young man from Sartell, Minnesota. Which is smack in the middle of the land of 10,000 lakes. Scott has now thrown 83 pitches, has struck out 5 and walked 4. 4 1/3 worth of work. Seen some moments where he's been on point. Seen some other moments where he has been struggling to find the zone. There's a 1-1 count to Cade Lewis here. The pitch. Backhand goalie snared by Luke Lavin. The count goes to 2-1. On a high hop, Becerra in the right place. Throws over to first, just getting Lewis. 2 away.
That second hop might have caught Becerra off guard a little bit, but still able to make a play. Good job by him staying down on the ball. That second bounce really kind of died on the dirt right behind the bag.
And yet he still didn't really need to make any serious adjustments or any movements. Jack Winney, a couple of ground outs today. A crucial 5-4-3 double play in the first. High strike called. Quick look at a few other scores around the ACC today. The big headline out of this weekend is going to be NC State. They beat Clemson today 4-1, so they pull off the sweep of the Tigers in Raleigh. Popped up, playable. Haskins chasing back and making the catch in foul ground for the third out. An 8-pitch inning for Matt Scott. Middle of the 5th. Stanford ahead 5-1. Wake Morning Star working into the 5th inning for Wake Forest. But it's the Cardinal with a 5-1 lead over the Demon Deacons. Heart of the order coming up for Stanford with Jimmy Natai starting things off. Natai bats in the 4th spot. Eventful afternoon for him so far. Was hit by a pitch. Later came around to score in the 1st. Reached on a throwing error by Demon Deacon shortstop Merrick Houston in the 3rd and came around to score there too. Just 1 earned run among 5 for the Cardinal here today. Natai an inside-out swing. Fouls that one off. As mentioned, going into that half inning, NC State pulling off a sweep over Clemson. 4-1 the final today in Raleigh. That series went Thursday, Friday, Saturday. As Natai hits this one into left center field. And Nelson's able to head over and make the grab for the out. That was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series between Clemson and NC State. So that series is in the book. And the Wolfpack, who began the week in 4th place in the ACC, have now vaulted into 2nd place, while Clemson has now fallen to 5th from 2nd. So a fairly damaging result of the series for Clemson, who came into the week the number 2 ranked team in the country. Sasaki looks to strike one.
And how is that to announce you've arrived again? NC State, of course, ranked, start the season, falling out of the rankings. Got back into the rankings after last weekend, but now they're just cruising.
So big wins for the Wolfpack in Raleigh. Also keeping an eye on Florida State Louisville. Seminoles took game 1 last night. Louisville drew level today, 9-4 final over the Seminoles. The 0-2. Opposite field, slicing in front of Williams for a base hit. Sasaki aboard for his first base hit of the day.
Nice piece of hitting there. One thing that's been so impressive about Sasaki, despite his struggles, is his really ability to be a professional hitter. Taking what the pitcher gives him, not trying to do too much with it. A lot of his power is pull side, but really he's got power to all fields. That time able to just dump one in front of Williams.
A nice rebound for him after striking out swinging on some filthy stuff from Morningstar in his previous plate appearance. First pitch to Timo Becerra, who hit a 2-run single to put Stanford on the board and give the Cardinal the lead in the bottom of the first, and then walked in the third. 1 ball and no strikes from Morningstar. Cracked foul. Florida State in first place in the standings entering this week. But so far they have split that series with Louisville, with game 3 coming up tomorrow. Louisville trying to fight and stay into the upper tier in the ACC. Rope to left. Williams with the nifty grab shy of the track.
That was a rocket off the bat. Hooking toward the corner, Williams able to reach out and hang on as he comes tumbling to the ground. Excellent play.
So now it's 2 out. And Luke Lavin coming to the plate. Lavin a sac fly RBI in the third. And some peppy walk-up music.
Nothing like some Mr. Saxo beat to get your day started.
Through the hole and into right for a base hit. Sasaki holds up at first. Mr. Saxo?
Mr. Saxo beat.
Mr. Saxo beat. My apologies, Mr. Beat. Is it Saxo beat or is it Saxo beat?
It is one word, I believe.
Okay.
I have not heard that song on the radio in 10 years.
So it's an oldie now?
Yeah, nothing like a little mid-2010s nostalgia.
Moments like these make me realize how old I really am. Ethan Hott singled and scored in the second, struck out in the third. It's down in the count here, 0-1. Hott, 2-time first-team All-State during his high school days in Arizona. Bounces, foul. And that's a pretty neat distinction to have, because there's some pretty good talent baseball-wise, I would imagine, down in the Grand Canyon State. I'm sure the competition for that distinction is rather fierce. The 0-2. Close, didn't miss by much, 1-2. Sasaki at second. See him right there. Luke Lavin at first. They both singled. Tails low and outside. By the way, other scores from around the ACC. It's gone final in Pittsburgh. The Panthers getting revenge on North Carolina after the Tar Heels had no problems against the Panthers last night. Pitt 4, Carolina 2. That's a final. The 2-2 to hot. Off the fists and into right. It stays up for Matt Scannell to make the grab. 2 on for the Cardinal, but they stay there. And through 5 complete, Stanford with a 5-1 lead over Wake Forest. Here we go, 6th inning about to start. Stanford with a 5-1 lead here on ACC Network Extra, and Carson Trail has you covered for the 6th and the 7th.
Thanks again, Troy. Luke Costello gets us started. Right-handed batter. So far today, he's 0 for 2 against Scott. Pitch number 89 to start the 6th inning on its way. And it's a called strike. On the outside corner at 89 miles an hour. 5, 6, and 7 hitters due up. Austin Hawk, who pinch hit in his last at-bat, there's a ring line drive low up the middle into center field. Leadoff single for Costello. The only inning that Wake Forest has scored today, leadoff man reached on a walk. That was in the first. Stanford have scored 5 unanswered since then. Stranding a couple aboard in the 5th inning. Now Thomas Eager comes out. Likely having a word with Scott. He was already dug in on the mound, ready to go, but with some action in the Cardinal bullpen, would not be all that surprising to see Scott either lifted from this game or at least this visit to buy the pen a little more time. But no, we'll see a pitching change.
That action had been ongoing even as that half inning began. So Eager was all ready to play that card if necessary. And it'll be Ryan Speciak coming in for his 2nd appearance of this series.
So we're going to pause for a quick break. Costello on first, Speciak into pitch when we come back on ACC Network Extra. Still in the top of the 6th inning. New pitcher on for the Cardinal, Ryan Speciak, with Costello on first. Matt Scott responsible for him, and for that reason, his line's still open. Troy, what can you tell us about Speciak?
Sophomore, 6'0", 217 pounds, out of Goleta, California. That's down Santa Barbara way. And Speciak appeared last night, faced 4 batters in the top of the 9th, struck out the first 2, but then walked the final 2 and set the stage for Wake Forest to eventually tie it up in bizarre fashion.
Austin Hawk belts that one to right center. Hot circles under it, and he makes the catch. So a quick first out. Costello remains at first. And that brings up Matt Scanlon, who hasn't been set down today.
Overall, Speciak about making his 16th appearance of the year, a 1-0 record and a 5.60 ERA. 17 2/3, 13 hits, 12 runs, 11 of them earned, 28 strikeouts versus 12 walks. Has hit 5 batters in 17 and actually 18 innings worth of work now. Got to update it.
The pitch to Scannell misses in tight, 92 miles an hour.
Struck out a career high against Cal State Fullerton back on February 16th.
Certainly with a lot of swing and miss stuff. That one's lined into right. Reynolds dives, it's off the heel of his glove. Could not keep that one in the webbing there. And Scannell has a base hit. That one was a rocket off the bat. Costello moves to second. And now Jimmy Keenan comes up. Again, in a big spot. Wake have not scored since the first. And a big swing of the bat can really change the complexion of this game.
Yeah, rocket to right, but it just seemed to run out of gas right in front of Reynolds in right. As he tried to adjust a bit, but Just couldn't quite put the clamps entirely on it as it hit the heel of his glove and then just dribbled out.
Pinch hitter for Jimmy Keenan, Antonio Morales. He came off the bench in a similarly high-stakes situation last night.
Sophomore from Norfolk, Massachusetts. Came on as a pinch hitter and walked.
So Morales against Speciak, a left-handed batter. Possibly a more favorable matchup. Speciak from the stretch. Costello at second, Scannell on first. One gone. First pitch misses wide.
Well, and that walk in that pinch hit performance last night by Morales was issued by Ryan Speciak himself. Seeing that battle once again here, what, about 16 hours later? Actually, about 18 hours later.
Long game last night, and another long one today shaping up. High fly ball, left center. Again, Hott measures it. He makes the catch, and he throws behind the lead runner, Costello. Two gone, both runners stay put. And another fly ball out induced by Speciak, two gone. Now Javar Williams. Much like Scannell, who singled earlier this inning, he hasn't been set down today. No official at bat yet, in fact. He has walked twice. Top of the order and Cam Nelson on deck. Off the outside corner. 5 runs, 7 hits, no errors for the Cardinal. 1 run, 6 hits, 2 errors for Wake Forest. Stanford won a 12-inning game last night on a walk-off single by Court McDonald, trying to win their first series in over a month in conference play. That one's flared foul. A ball into strike on Williams.
And Stanford has been swept in 3-game series 4 times this year. Only the 3rd time in Stanford baseball history that's happened. Won't happen again this weekend, but still not a mark that Stanford baseball would like to have.
The 1-1. Change up, drops low.
In 1980 and 2015, those were the only other 2 years in which Stanford had been swept in a 3-game series 4 times, at least.
2-1. The stretch and the pitch. Strike 2 call right at the bottom of the zone. Fastball only registering on the gun at 91 miles an hour, but that movement from Speciak really helps it play up. Trying to set down Williams and quell another Demon Deacons threat. 2-2 pitch. Bounce to short. Becerra on the run, throws low to first, and Sasaki can't pick it out. And the inning continues. Everybody's safe. That ball was hit softly, and Becerra, shaded toward the middle, had to make an off-balance throw. And Sasaki, as far as he could stretch, could not quite secure that one in his glove. So let's see how that's scored. It is an infield single. Williams, a very fast runner, now 1 for 1. Bases loaded. Cam Nelson, the possible tying run, takes a strike.
Williams, a fast runner, plus a high degree of difficulty there for Becerra, does equal the infield single to load him up.
Here's the pitch. There's a shot to right center field. Not hit quite as hard, and that's a base hit. 2 runs will score. Williams heads into third. It's a 2-run single. Cam Nelson has the Deacons on the board for the first time since the first inning, and it's a 2-run game.
Boy, after spending much of this game coming close to the front door and then stepping on a rake, they finally break through. And still have a chance to get even closer, if not potentially even overtake the Cardinal here And Merrick Houston, who again left 10 on base last night, I bet he's thinking that, man, I got to be due for something here.
Wake Forest has been such a good situational hitting team all year, and it's been largely because of Houston's success. And a ball inside. Williams at third, Nelson at first. Lavin behind the plate. Not Stanford's ordinary starting catcher. We'll have to see if the Demon Deacons decide to put something on. Tight breaking ball, misses wide. It's 2-0.
Final line on Matt Scott, 5+, 5 hits, 2 runs both earned, 4 walks and 5 strikeouts. 1 wild pitch in 90 pitches.
Swing and a miss. Houston nearly came out of his shoes there. That was as balanced of a hack as we've seen all series.
Yeah, he was trying to hit his first home run in a month. Hasn't gone yards since March 25th at Elon.
The 2-1 from Speciok just misses.
And this after Houston had hit 10 home runs in the first 26 games of the season.
The 3-1. A strike. 91 on the outside corner. Nelson, the runner at first, will get a head start. 3-2, 2 outs, 2 in. Stanford up 2. Ball in the gap could tie the game. Speciok against Houston. Here it comes. Fly ball right center. Slicing away from Hott. Reynolds makes the call and the catch. And that retires the side. 2 across. But the Demon Deacons strained 2 more, and Houston is 1 for 4. We go to the bottom of the 6th. Stanford trying to re-extend the lead on ACC Network Extra. Last half of the 6th inning. Wake Forest with 2 in the top half, and Court McDonald gets things going against a new pitcher, Josh Gunther. Another change coming in the battery for the Demon Deacons. Matt Conti comes in as a defensive replacement. So with Gunther in the game, take a look at the final line for Blake Morningstar. 5 innings pitched, 1 earned out of 5 runs allowed, a walk and 6 Ks. 1 ball, no strikes to McDonald. 9-1 and 2 hitters due up for the Cardinal. Gunther in his sophomore season out of Fairhope, Alaska. That misses down. Is that Alaska or Alabama? It's abbreviated ALA.
That's Alabama.
That is Alabama. Well, I suppose that's why we stick to, at times, 2 letters. 2-0. Hit high in the air to left center field. Williams waves off the center fielder Nelson, and he makes the catch. Fairhope, Alabama for Josh Gunther. Already mentioned that he was in his sophomore season. Taking a look at his numbers this year through what is now 16 and a third innings. An ERA at about 2.8. Lowered with the first out recorded here this inning. He is not allowed a home run this year. So certainly somebody who's proven capable of silencing the power of quite a few hitters is Trevor Haskins. Stanford's leader in home runs takes wide.
Gunther leads the Deeks with 4 saves. Racked up saves in 3 straight appearances back in late February against St. John's, Elons, and Princeton.
The pitch to Haskins. He drills that one to right center field. Nelson glides over, makes the one-hand catch.
And bullpen, by and large, has done well for Wake Forest for the most part. Hayden LeFew has been terrific throughout much of the season. Griffin Green was a revelation last night, pitching 4 scoreless in relief against the Cardinal on Friday. He felt bad that the result didn't quite go his way as his fantastic efforts just results in the mere non-decision. But there have been some real bright spots for Wake in their bullpen for much of the season.
Yeah, Wake's had their fair share of injuries. Stanford's bullpen was really proven to be a strength to start out the year. And perhaps a little meeting here between Dave Esker and Brady Reynolds to buy that bullpen a little bit of time. Right-hander getting loose for the Cardinal. From our vantage point, it looks like Ben Reimers, one of a couple. He's the only one throwing a baseball down there, but a couple others getting stretched out.
Yeah, Wake probably, perhaps, in some ways, missing their best guy out of the bullpen in Will Ray, who is injured, the youngster from the Pittsburgh area. So even then, Wake has been able to get good production out of their relief arms.
5-3. Demon Deacons working their way back into this game. They're now out hitting the Cardinal 8-7. The difference in the game, a couple of Wake Forest errors. Reynolds stands in against Gunther, and he takes a strike, breaking ball at the bottom of the zone.
Another name potentially to watch out for in the Wake Forest pen is Duncan Marston, a freshman from Lake Balboa, California. He actually went to Harvard Westlake High School. Highly talented young man from Southern California.
And Reynolds breaks his bat and dumps one into center field. So there have been a few of those broken bats this year for the Cardinal. That time Reynolds, his bat dies a hero, as they say. His first hit of the game is the last one he ever gets with that one.
Do they have a ceremony after the game or something?
Sometimes teams will have bat graveyards. But those are typically with wood, not metal.
Right.
Like an area behind the outfield wall, maybe not in Stanford's case, but sometimes. Where you get a shovel, you just stick the bat head into the ground. Maybe have a ceremony of sorts as Marsh takes a strike. Reynolds, a 2-out single on a broken bat. Tatum Marsh down in the count, 0-1. Singled and doubled, scoring twice for the Cardinal. Reynolds runs. Pitch swung on and missed. And no throw. The new catcher, Conti, decided not to make a throw. Reynolds got a really good jump. And a timely stolen base with 2 outs. Base hit could extend the 2-run lead for the Cardinal.
Well, and the Cardinals suddenly enjoying a resurgent running game.
The 0-2. Check swing, appeal to first, no, says John Byrne.
Again, bears repeating. Stanford coming into the series 11 of 32 in stolen bases. Perfect so far this weekend.
Big lead with 2 outs at second base by Reynolds. 1-2, bounce right back to Gunther. He tosses to first, and it's in time to get Marsh. That ends the inning. A 2-out single, a stolen base, and nothing more for the Cardinal. Josh Gunther gets a shutdown inning for the Demon Deacons. We go to the 7th. 5-3, Cardinals still out in front on ACC Network Extra. Top of the 7th inning, 5-3. Stanford leads Wake Forest, and another move to the pen for the Stanford Cardinal. Nick Dugan comes in for Ryan Speshak, whose final line reads, at a full inning pitch, 3 hits, a run that was earned, no walks, no strikeouts, no homers, no hit batsman. Dugan comes in fresh off a 7-inning complete game. That was against UC Davis, I believe, on Monday. And now he comes in facing the 3, 4, 5 hitters, the teeth of the Wake Forest batting lineup.
Dugan 4-0 with a 5.40 ERA so far this season. The junior from Eureka.
First pitch, misses down low. 91 miles an hour for ball 1. Lewis, 2 for 3 today. Drove in a run back in the first inning. Wake scored 2 in the 6th. And it's a 2-0 count on Lewis.
Of course, the rotation for Stanford in a bit of flux. Dugan's been getting looks in the midweek games, and it's, of course, Matt Scott and Joey Volchko.
Swing and a miss, 2-1.
But Christian Lim injured. We'll see for how long. So as of right now, Stanford's starter for tomorrow is the ever-popular TBD.
Changeup wraps its way around the inside corner. That was Dugan's signature offering out of high school. Really loves using that against left-handed batters. Tightened up the slider ahead of this year, still has the curveball, and skips the changeup 2 feet in front of the plate.
Yeah, Dugan actually closed out his high school career by striking out all 13 batters he faced in the division championship game. How's that for going out on a high note?
Now trying to start off his outing strong. The payoff to Lewis. Misses low. Did not get him to chase. Third time today that Wake has gotten the leadoff runner aboard, and both of the other 2 times he's scored. Now Jack Winne. 2-run home run yesterday. Similar result will tie the game. Dugan from the stretch. Curveball catches the bottom of the zone.
I would think Trevor Moore gets the start for Stanford tomorrow. We'll see. We know that Chris Lavonis is scheduled to get the start for Wake Forest tomorrow. He's a freshman out of New Jersey.
Very talented young arm for the Demon Deacons. Lofted into shallow left center. Out into the wide open spaces. Becerra can't make the play. Throws off balance to second. Too late. That's a base hit. Becerra going out. Hot coming in from center. Marsh coming in from left. And neither of the 3 really had a good angle to flag that one down.
Yeah, long way to go. A tough angle and a practically white sky matching the baseball. So all of those things conspiring against Becerra, who came closest to it, as well as Hot in center and Marsh in left.
Now Costello. Potential tying run at first, nobody out. Here's the pitch. No bunt shown from Costello, and he takes down. Lewis at second, Winne at first. Costello today has struck out, flied out, and singled to score in that 2-run 6th. The 1-0. In the dirt, Lavin knocks it down and keeps both runners where they are. Still a hitter's count on the dangerous Costello. Former top high school recruit in Pennsylvania, top 5 third baseman, in fact. Inside move towards second. Becerra was covering the bag. That one just as much to restart the pitch clock as to try and see what Costello's plan might be. Could be a bunt situation. If you move him up, a base hit could score them both to tie it. 3-0. And Dugan in danger of walking his second of the inning.
Yeah, Dugan almost fired that fastball into the dirt. And we have a potential situation developing here in the 7th.
Trevor Moore's getting loose in the Cardinal bullpen. There's a strike. Moore, one of the candidates to possibly start tomorrow's game. Could see him earlier than perhaps what was intended. 3-1. And Costello takes the walk, and that loads the bases. This is as good a chance as Wake Forest have had all game. A walk, a pop-up that drops for a single, and that loads the bases for Austin Hawk.
Demon Deacons have left 8 on base today, combined with the 16 they left on base last night. Productive hits have been few and far between for Wake Forest so far in this series, but they are in a big position here. Bases loaded and nobody out.
Right as the infield adjourns, here comes Thomas Eager, and Trevor Moore is going to come in. A 2-run game. Demon Deacons with the bases loaded, and Nick Dugan departs without recording an out. 5-3. Bases loaded. 7th inning when we come back. The 4th pitcher of the day for the Cardinal is Trevor Moore. He inherits a bases-loaded jam here in the 7th, and Wake Forest can tie the game with a base hit. Moore entered in as one of the highest esteemed relief pitchers in the conference, and he has been better than his line has said throughout this season. A 6.20 ERA, a whip up over 1.5. And right now he's facing Hawk. Pinch hit a couple of at-bats ago, has flied out twice. Possible tying run at second, possible go-ahead run at first. Nobody out, and Hawk takes in the dirt. Lewis, Winne, and Costello the runners. 2 walks and a single. All 3 runners the responsibility of Nick Dugan. Moore's 1-0 pitch. 2-0.
Well, think back to last night when Wake had a 5-2 lead going into the bottom of the 8th. Joe Ariola came in, walked a guy, induced a fielder's choice, and then hit a batter. And that opened up the way for Stanford to score 4 and eventually take the lead. Fast forward to today, and Wake trying to flip the script, and Nick Dugan hoping that he's not necessarily today's Joe Ariola.
3-0. Hawk way up in the box. Watches one that splits the plate. Matt Scannell on deck. He has not been set down today. Flied in the air, shallow right. Reynolds racing over. It falls and gets by him. 1 run will score, as that is Lewis who comes to the plate. Everybody else plays station to station. But Wake comes 1 run closer. The base is still loaded, nobody out.
Now batting, the right fielder, Matt Scannell.
That one, everybody playing conservatively with none gone, and with Reynolds less than a foot away from making the play there. But it's a 1-run game. Scannell is up. That run charged to Nick Dugan. And the base is loaded. A double, a single, and a walk for Scannell today. 2 for 2. Big curveball misses down for ball 1.
Well, Stanford very lucky that that ball did not bounce very far away from Brady Reynolds after he missed it on the dive. Initially thought, as I watched it unfurl, that ball might roll all the way to the wall. It didn't. Reynolds able to get it back and allow just 1 run to score.
The 1-0. Called a strike at the bottom of the zone. Scannell and Moore. Opponents on Cape Cod this past summer, but did not face each other. Big curveball with some sweeping action, and it's 1-2. Moore pitching for the strikeout. Here it comes. Popped up in foul ground, slicing out of play, and it lands in the Demon Deacons bullpen.
You know, a lot of ballparks, you don't even bother trying to chase it down. But because there is so much foul room here, you think, oh, that might actually land. So you have to hustle over there just in case. So long runs for Haskins at third and Martian left.
Hard ground ball foul. Scannell stays alive. Two in the sixth, one so far here in the seventh. Wake had been kept off the board since the first. Now they try to even the game and even the series. 1-2 to Scannell. Fouled back towards us.
Good thing that netting was there. Might have had to scramble for a ball here in the press box, which has happened on occasion. But they also go to the opposite side of the press box from where we're sitting right now.
Bases loaded, nobody out. Popped up. Haskins hustling over, still slicing away from him, and it lands off the screen and foul.
Haskins getting a workout, eh?
Any ball that close to playable. Always trying to do his best to flag it down. That one out of his reach. The wind kind of pushing it that way, as the net is kind of billowing out when blowing in from right field. That's where Scannell has the most pop. Strike three called. And Scannell knew it. A big out number one. And now let's see. It is Conti to come up. The catcher came on as a defensive replacement. Bases loaded. 1-run game, 1 out. Trevor Moore got the first out via strikeout. Looking for another one here. 1 pitch away from possibly escaping the inning. Tying run at third, that's Winne. Costello at second, Hawk at first. Sasaki gives that one a look, but it trails out of play.
2 home runs, 8 driven in this year for Matt Conti, the freshman from Andover, Massachusetts. Drove in 3 against High Point back on April the 1st. Was the Gatorade Player of the Year for the state of Massachusetts last year.
He drives in 2 more. That will give the Demon Deacons the lead. Slider misses down and away. A ball in to strike. A shot to left center. Hot races over. He can't get there. Winne scores. Costello heads to third. He stops there. But this game is tied 5 apiece here in the 7th.
Now batting, the left fielder.
Conti comes through. Winne scores. Costello to third. Hawk to second. And now Javar Williams, who has not been set down today, can give the Demon Deacons their first lead without a hit. Or rather, their first lead since the top of the first. A run across in the first, Stanford scored 5 unanswered until now. 5-5 our score. Williams looks at strike 1.
Javara Williams has walked 5 times this series. 3 last night, 2 so far today. Nowhere to put him now.
Here's the 0-1. Trails inside. 1 ball, 1 strike. 2 walks and a single off of Nick Dugan. Line still open on him. As now Will Press with the home plate umpire warning Moore that before he comes set, the hitter needs to make eye contact with them.
That's what cost Stanford a run last night.
The 1-1 pitch. Williams takes a strike. right on the inside corner. Softly hit ball gives the Demon Deacons the lead with the infield back. Moore's 1-2 in the dirt. Luke Lavin pointing back out at his pitcher, liked the spot of it. Well done by the Cardinal catcher to keep it in front.
Yeah, I was about to say, Trevor probably appreciated the fact that Lavin was able to block that one. Otherwise, that would have definitely scored one, maybe two.
The 2-2 pitch. Tapped foul. Top of the order lurking on deck. Nelson, the on-deck hitter, singled home a pair in the 6th. 2 more and counting across here in the 7th. The pitch on the way. Williams bounces another one foul. Long at bats against Trevor Moore here in the 7th. Couple of bases loaded singles for the Demon Deacons. Hawk drove in one. Conti another. The pitch. Line drive left center. That gets down, base hit. Costello scores. Hawk right behind him. Conti gets the stop sign. The throw comes in and it trickles away. But 2 score. A double by Williams to give the Demon Deacons a 7-5 lead.
Comeback complete for Wake. And it's Javar Williams. Boy, the bottom of the lineup really paced things for Wake last night. And the bottom of the lineup doing big things here again today. Scannell with a couple of base hits. Conti with an RBI single. And now Javar Williams, who has not been retired so far today.
4 across here in the 7th inning. And the pitch to Nelson is a curveball that drops in on the outside corner. Conti at third, Williams at second. Anybody other than a catcher may have scored a 3rd run there. Do not need a hit to get Conti home, though. That one caught by Moore. He throws to second. Got him! A double play ends the inning. And let's see if Tom Walter will take a look. He will not. A double play. A line drive right back to the pitcher as we head to the stretch. Stanford now down 2 after the 4 spot by Wake on ACC Network Extra.
Second baseman, Jimmy Natai.
A 4-run top of the 7th for Wake Forest. They now have a 2-run lead, their largest of the game. Jimmy Natai to start things off for the Cardinal, facing Josh Gunther. Now in line to be the winning pitcher if the results hold. Gunther, one of the premier high leverage arms for the Demon Deacons. Natai, Sasaki, and Becerra 4-5-6 due against him. First pitch hit softly up the third baseline, foul.
Well, it's a movie that Stanford has seen more than it would care to admit, more than it would like to have so far this season. Getting off to decent starts at the plate, on the scoreboard, and then watching it get frittered away midway through.
Still plenty of time left for the Cardinal to come back in this one. 1-1 the count on the second baseman.
And it's interesting, this is Stanford's 38th game of the season, and you can almost very neatly cleave the season in 2. The first 18 games, they went 15-3. Their team ERA during that span was 4.57. In 19 games since, team ERA was 8.57. Their team ERA went up a full 2 runs over the past month.
Called to strike, 1-2.
And the bullpen, which had been super solid in the first month, that went out the window. Starting pitching, kind of hit or miss, and then it kind of became miss as it went along. So the struggles for the for the Stanford pitching, and in particular bullpen of late, continue.
Nadai pops this one up into shallow right. Wentz gives way, and Scannell makes a sliding catch.
Well, I give Scannell credit for hanging in there. It appeared that Wentz might have been calling folks off, and then all of a sudden held off. And Scannell was able to come in and complete the play. There have been some intriguing moments on fly balls for Wake Forest throughout this series. Had a moment last night between Williams and Nelson in left and center, late in the game last night. Then again, it seemed like everything in the game was late last night.
Rentaro Sasaki up now, 3 men to the right is second, and he takes up and away. Stanford have not scored since the 3rd inning, although they have had their chances, stranding at least 1 runner in the last 3. That's 4 even if you count the 3rd. 1 ball, 1 strike on Sasaki.
By the way, that 4-inning frame for the Demon Deacons, their 36th big inning. Big inning is counted as 4 runs or more. Their 36th such inning this season.
Both of these teams, as there's a high drive down the right field line. Deep, Scannell onto the track in foul ground, reaches out and makes the catch. That one was about as close as you can get both ways to being a homer. But Sasaki just caught it right a little bit too far out in front. 2 gone.
103 miles an hour coming off the bat. 36.7% launch angle. And that was a soaring, majestic out number 2.
Timo Becerra, the hitter. He drills that one right to Hawk. And that retires the side. Couple of loud pieces of contact, but nothing to show for it. Big shutdown inning for the Demon Deacons. We go to the 8th on ACC Network Extra. Another new arm for the Cardinal. Trevor Moore's line terminates at an inning pitch. 3 hits, a run allowed, and 1 strikeout. In to replace him, the right-hander, Ben Reimers, is now with the play-by-play for the duration. Here's Troy Clardy.
All right, thank you, Carson. Ben Reimers in the game, the sophomore from Aliso Viejo, California, and he's working from behind here as Wake Forest has scored the last 6 runs of this game to take a 7-5 lead. Reimers making his 15th appearance, 1-0 record, a 7.36 ERA, 18 in the 3rd innings, 19 hits, 15 runs, all earned, 13 walks and 10 strikeouts. Opposing batters hitting .279 against Reimers. With Wake Forest trying to even up this series. Both teams trying to get up off the mat in some respects. It's been tough for both the Cardinal and the Demon Deacons after fantastic starts in league play. But both teams have kind of been spinning their wheels a little bit, Stanford especially. So this series, crucial in trying to position themselves into perhaps more favorable positioning for the ACC tournament, which comes up in a month or so down in Charlotte. So Ben Reimers is on. 5th different pitcher for the Cardinal today. Matt Scott got the start. 5+. Speciak threw an inning. Then Nick Dugan faced 3 batters and didn't retire any of them. And all of them came around to score. Merrick Houston takes the first pitch from Reimers, a fastball high for ball 1. Houston quiet so far in this series overall. An infield single in the first, but that's been it today. He went 1 for 6 last night. Off speed down low, 2-0 to Houston. Some other scores from around the ACC. Notre Dame knocking off Cal 10-0. Bears managing just 2 hits in South Bend today, as the Irish have already taken that series, with the count going to 3-0 on Houston. Miami, a final over BC, 13-4. Stanford will be at Boston College next weekend.
As many errors as runs in that game for Boston College.
That's not ideal. A leadoff walk is never ideal either, but that's what Reimers has just issued to Houston. Cade Lewis 2 for 3 with a couple of walks, an RBI single in the first, walked and scored in the second, or in the seventh, check that. They've gone back and forth in Durham, and now they've been even, and now they've gone to extras, with Virginia Tech and Duke tied at 8. As a chill starts to settle in again over Sunken Diamond. It was nice to have the sun out while it lasted. Cracked back up the middle and through for a base hit. A ringing single for Cade Lewis, his third today. Deeks have runners at the corners.
The first baseman, Jack Winay.
And Jack Winay coming to the plate. Singled and scored in the seventh. Pitt beat North Carolina today 4-2. Louisville handled Florida State 9-4 to even that series up. But the big headline right now coming out of the ACC ball is the sweep of NC State over number 2 Clemson, as the Wolfpack finished off the Tigers 4-1. When they off the fist, fouls it back. So NC State takes all 3 from the number 2 team in the country. So I'm sure a lot of happy people in Raleigh as a result.
Still plenty of teams to sift through toward the middle of the ACC. A lot of talent up and down the conference.
Yeah, big log jam. Wake trying to stay on the underside of that log jam. Stanford trying to break into it. They've got a little bit of work to do. Nobody out, runners at the corners. Houston at third, Lewis at first. As Reimers pumps it down low, count goes to 1 ball and 2 strikes. Reimers threw in the series opener against Notre Dame on Friday, Friday of last week. An inning, a hit, a run that was earned, walked 3 and struck out 2. Misses here, 2-2. Reimer, 6'3", 210. He added 17 pounds to his frame from last year. I trust it's a good 17 pounds. Muscle. I had 17 pounds. It ain't muscle, I'll tell you that. Swing and a miss. Strike 3.
And that's what an extra 17 pounds will do for you. Fastball up in the zone, exploding out of the hand. And a pretty crucial out number 1. Now you're just 1 pitch away if you're Reimers.
Here's Luke Costello, who has come around the score in his last 2 plate appearances. Singled in the 6th, walked in the 7th. Still runners at the corners. An excuse me swing back to the screen. Costello on Tuesday against Liberty in a win for Wake earlier this week. Say that 3 times fast. Hit a solo home run and also walked with the bases loaded. As the Deeks doused the Flames. 0-1. Curve. Bit early on it. 0-2.
Liberty's been as pesky of a midweek opponent on the East Coast as anybody this year. Wins over a lot of ACC opponents, quite a few.
Yeah, Wake went to Liberty on March 18th and lost 11-8. Got some revenge earlier this week. That game at Liberty, by the way, a bit of a homecoming for Dalton Wentz, the second baseman for Wake Forest, the freshman, who was originally from near that area. No balls, 2 strikes to Costello. This is low, 1-2. Wentz started in this game but was lifted, replaced by Austin Hawk, who pinch hit for him in the 4th, and Hawk has since stayed in the game as a defensive replacement at second. The 1-2 pitch from Reimers. Tattooed to the bullpen, heads up down that way.
That was a fastball that wasn't quite high enough in the zone. Enough to tempt him, but not enough, not out of the zone to get the swinging strike. Good news for Reimers is that sets up the curveball down, or possibly even freeze him with the fastball.
See what he does here. Fastball, got him. And there's the punch out. Back-to-back Ks.
Next, the second baseman, Austin Hahn.
Still just a 2-run lead for Wake Forest. They would love to get at least one more, especially considering how this inning started.
A walk to Merrick Houston, who's now at third. A single by Cade Lewis, who's now at first. Austin Hawk with an RBI single in the 7th to get the scoring going for the Demon Deacons in that frame. Lavin blocks it, rolls off to his right, 1-0. Hawk played 17 games his freshman year at North Carolina back in 2023 and then transferred to Wake Forest after that season. 1 ball, no strikes. Hawk hit a 2-run home run against Duke last year, so I'm sure the Carolina part of him was especially happy about that. Duke and Carolina don't get along very well, I'm told. 2 balls, no strikes.
Not particularly.
Lasered foul. Well, the Deeks have been able to get decent contact on Reimers, but haven't been able to keep the balls in play, at least not for the last few batters anyway. 2-1. Runner heading to second. Ball blocked, and Lavin doesn't bother. Count goes to 3-1.
Ball in the dirt. And Lewis was at second by the time the ball reached the plate. He had a huge jump.
So now 2 in scoring position with 2 out. Lewis credited with the stolen base. Outside corner, count full.
93 right on the black. That's what got him the called third strikeout on Costello. Base open. Let's see what Reimers goes to here.
Reimer steps off. Big sequence here for both teams. Wake would love to get some insurance runs. Get a bit of breathing room. Here it is, the 3-2. Straight into the air. Sasaki calls for it and makes the grab on the line for the third out. The first 2 reach, but they stay there for Wake. And it's still a 2-run game. Stanford coming to the plate in the bottom of the 8th in just a moment. Bottom of the 8th, bottom of the order. As Wake Forest has a 7-5 lead over Stanford. Lavin, Hott, and McDonald due up for the Cardinal, the 7, 8, 9 hitters for Stanford. Lavin with a single. Hott with a single back in the second. And McDonald also singled in the second as well. Just 8 base hits for Stanford in this one. As Lavin strides up to the plate. Sky is starting to darken here just a little bit. Had a few sprinkles right at the start of the game, but we have remained dry throughout this afternoon. As Lavin steps up to the plate. Josh Gunther deals. Curveball outside for ball 1. Tomorrow should remain mostly dry from the looks of it, with cloudy skies in the forecast and a high of 58. Fastball inside for ball 2. Still a bit on the chilly side here in Northern California. Maybe not quite the weather that the university would have preferred for admit weekend. For the folks who got the fat envelope in the mail, they get a chance to come in and check out the campus. 3 balls and no strikes. Now 3-1. I'm showing my age here a bit. It's the fat envelope isn't a thing anymore, is it? You get the acceptance via email these days.
Well, I was admitted during COVID, so we didn't get anything.
Okay. What, you just showed up and
Yeah, they just showed up and nobody protested.
They haven't found you out yet.
And it's too late because I'm done.
That's right. Can't get you now. Neener. The 3-2 to Lavin. Fastball misses low, and Gunter says, "Oh, man."
And that's something that Lavin's demonstrated since last year during his freshman year. His feel for the strike zone is very, very strong. On base for the second time today. Hit a sac fly to drive in a run in the third, and every run looming large about now.
And you know what happens when you get a leadoff walk. More often than not, it seems, that leadoff walk comes around to score. Ethan Hott paid the cost to be the boss. Singled and scored in the second. Also with a strikeout and a flyout. Fastball right down the middle for strike 1. Josh Gunther named the pitcher of the year during his high school days by the Alabama Sports Writers Association. That was during his senior year. Off the fist and twisting and landing, bouncing it around the 7th row. Hot, down quickly, 0-2. The chalk kicked up as that ball just hit the dirt with Matt Conti's glove. Perhaps touching the ground as well. Count goes to 1-2.
Big hole in the right side. I would not be surprised to see Ethan Hott shorten up if he gets something off the plate.
Tried. He tried it. Lavin at first. Gunther checks him. The 1-2 pitch. bounces. Handled by Conti. Gunther with a 4-out save at Clemson back on March the 22nd. Struck out a couple of Tigers along the way. The 2-2 pitch. Now the count full. Gunther's run it up full on back-to-back batters. Wake Forest bullpen is populated, but no action as of right now. The 3-2 pitch into the hole and into right field for a base hit. Hot shortens up, gets the job done. And now the go-ahead run is coming to the plate.
That's exactly the kind of swing that Hott was hoping to take all plate appearance. Finally getting something with the count full, just flicks it through the hole.
Oh, and here's Court McDonald, who has had 4 base hits so far in this series. 6 so far this week. None bigger than the RBI single to give Stanford the win at 11:08 p.m. Pacific time last night. He's showing bunt here. Pulls it back, but the pitch goes over anyway for a called strike one. Jack Winne was creeping up, and by the time the pitch got into Conte's glove, Winne was probably about 20 feet away from home plate. 0-1. The bunt laid down. Gunther bobbles it, and everybody's safe.
That one off the third base side. Gunther may have had thoughts about throwing to third with Lavin, a catcher, jogging in that direction, or hustling in that direction, but could not pick it up cleanly, and that erased any possibility of a play. Now it's Stanford with the golden chance.
So now the bases are loaded for Trevor Haskins, who enters the game as Stanford's leader in hits, doubles, home runs, RBI, total bases, and slugging percentage. It's been magnificent at the top of the lineup. I don't believe we have had an official scoring of that last sequence just yet. And now Tom Walter, the Wake Forest head coach, comes out of the dugout. And whenever it's Walter heading to the mound, that means he's making a change. And that is the case here in this instance. Well, we have a situation here in the bottom of the 8th inning. Wake Forest is ahead 7-5, but the Cardinal with the bases loaded and nobody out. What will happen next? Who's the new pitcher? Your answers coming up in just a moment here on ACC Network Extra. Bottom of the 8th inning, Wake Forest leading 7-5, but Stanford has the bases loaded with nobody out. And Tom Walter, the Wake Forest head coach, has now turned to Matt Bedford. Bedford, a grad transfer from Staten Island, New York, transferred to Wake Forest from Notre Dame. Bedford about to make his 17th appearance of the year, has a 4-3 record and an ERA of 9.14. 21 2/3. 25 hits, 25 runs, 22 of them earned, 21 strikeouts versus 15 walks. He's hit 8 batters in 21 2/3 innings worth of work. And talk about a high leverage situation. Bases loaded, nobody out. Stanford's best bat at the plate in Trevor Haskins. Haskins, a sac fly RBI, was also hit by a pitch. And he swings and misses. A mighty cut, 0-1.
Tried to launch that one to the field hockey stadium.
No balls and 1 strike. Cracks at that one, 0-2.
And that one was middle. He's going to want that one back. Now on a 2-strike count, any way you can. Keep the line moving.
Bedford ready. The pitch. High for ball 1. Bedford, in his last outing against Boston College on Friday of last week, he faced 3 batters. He walked 2. He hit the other, and all of them scored. The 1-2 pitch. Stays fair. The throw to first in time for the out. Lavin comes across, and Stanford's now up in the run. It's 7-6.
I'm very surprised that Lewis neither stepped on the third base bag or came home with the throw. That's a big run and a productive out just surrendered there.
So the tying run at third, go-ahead run at second. And they've intentionally walked Brady Reynolds to load him up for Tatum Marsh. Marsh, a single in the first, doubled and scored in the third. He has scored 2 runs so far this afternoon. Has reached in 34 straight games now. Check that 35. First pitch from Bedford is outside for ball 1. Matt Bedford, the former Notre Dame baseball player, about to deal the 1-0. Turns on that one and sends it foul. Bedford was Notre Dame's Friday starter last year. Threw a team-high 62 innings, ended up with a 3-6 record and a 4.65 ERA. He actually started against Wake Forest exactly 1 year ago today, April 26th. Today is the 26th, right? I think it is. Yes, it is. And Bedford that day, 5 2/3, a run. It was unearned, and struck out 3 in a no decision. One ball, 2 strikes to Tatum Marsh. Well outside. Here comes Hot. He scores. And we are tied. Just a bit outside.
That was the changeup, and that's the second instance this plate appearance where Bedford had just not quite had that release. Well outside. Infield comes in now.
And first base is now open, the 2-2. That one had some movement to it, but it missed outside, 3-2. Two in already for Stanford with 1 out. On the ground, snared it short. Houston to throw is in time at first for the out. But McDonald comes across to score, and Stanford is back in the lead. It's 8-7.
Now back. Second baseman, number 6, Jimmy Natai.
Well, not the sexiest way to drive in the go-ahead run, but Stanford doesn't care. They'll take it. Jimmy Natai, who is certainly a young man who can clear the bases with one swing of the bat. He has 7 home runs in ACC play entering this series. He strides to the plate. And he sends that one. They have deflected off the mound. It's in the center field for a base hit. Coming around the score is Reynolds. And Stanford gets a crucial run. Another one. And now it's 9-7.
4 runs across here in the 8th. After 4 for the Deacons scored in the 7th. Each side's offense has depended so heavily on the big inning. And right now, each side has a taste of their own medicine.
One for Wake and one for Stanford. And the Cardinal can keep it going. Wake Forest bullpen is still. And Rintaro Sasaki with a loud out in the 7th inning went deep to right but was caught in foul ground by Matt Scannell. Sasaki singled in the 5th. Up high for ball 1. Taro Sasaki turned 21 last Friday. Or turned 20 last Friday, excuse me. Turns 21 next year. Big swing and a miss there, 1-1. Of course, 21st birthday is when you're eligible for the MLB draft, which is the big goal for Rintaro here. Blazing a trail that hasn't been done. Japan to American college. Low and outside, 2-1.
There have been so few success stories of Japanese high school ball players coming to the United States. Have had a few go the junior college route, but none as highly touted as Sasaki.
3-1. Of course, all the hype coming into the season, Shohei Ohtani said, hey, this kid's swing is better than mine, and Rintaro had the right response. No, it's not. 3-1. And that's inside for ball 4. Third time today that Sasaki has reached. Timo Becerra coming to the plate. But first, a conference on the mound. Corey Mascara coming out, the Wake Forest pitching coach, making an extremely slow walk to the mound. And he cannot be happy with how this inning has gone.
Gunther's line, I might add now, closed. 2 innings, 2 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned. A walk, no strikeouts, and 35 pitches thrown.
Eight runs for Stanford, but only 3 of them earned. That is a large part of the story for this one. An error earlier in this inning helping to open up the way for the Cardinals. Loading up the bases at that point with nobody out. A couple RBI ground outs and an RBI single by Jimmy Natai, and also a run scored on a wild pitch along the way. So 4 in for Stanford so far in this frame. Cardinal hoping for more.
Now batting, the shortstop, number 2, Timo Becerra.
Timo Becerra coming to the plate. As there is action with a left-hander warming for the Deeks. Becerra, a 2-run single that gave Stanford its first runs of the game back in the first. Bedford pumps it right down the middle for a called strike 1.
Becerra possibly just taken all the way there. Bedford hasn't really established either of his 2 secondary offerings thus far.
0-2 now to Becerra, who is on a 7-game hit streak. That streak extended thanks to that 2-run single in the first. The 0-2. Well outside. Matt Bedford from Staten Island has his degree from Notre Dame. Missed his freshman season there due to injury. The 1-2. Becerra goes opposite field, but it stays up for Matt Scannell, who makes the catch. But Stanford strikes back. After allowing 4 in the top half of the 7th, Stanford answering with 4 in the bottom half of the 8th and taking a 9-7 lead to the 9th. Can the Card close out the Deacs? Let's find out in a moment on ACC Network Extra. Comes down to this for Wake Forest. 9-7. Stanford with 4 big runs to take the lead in the bottom of the 8th. We move to the 9th. And the series hangs in the balance. Bottom of the order coming up for the Deacs, beginning with Matt Scannell, the 7-batter for Wake Forest, and he'll be facing Aiden Keenan, the 6th different pitcher for Stanford today. Keenan, the sophomore from Morgan Hill. Keenan threw 1+ innings last night, got charged for 2 runs, both of them earned throughout the course of last night's action. Keenan overall, however, about to make his 18th appearance, a 1-1 record, and an ERA of 3.51. Team high 4 saves on the season, hoping to add to that here. First pitch he deals low and inside to Scannell for ball 1. Scannell finally retired for the first time in this game in the 7th inning, struck out looking. And that one is called on the inside corner, 1-1. Matt Scott, Ryan Speciak, Nick Dugan, Trevor Moore, Ben Reimers, and now Aiden Keenan. Well, and I'm going back to that 7th inning in which Wake had already put 4 across. And the bases were, I believe, loaded at that point. And then Cam Nelson lined into a 1-4 double play to end the inning. And that sequence is looming larger and larger. As, yes, they got the 4 runs, but, man, that could have been a lot bigger if not for that 1-4 double play that Trevor Moore was able to finish off. Keenan dealing a 96-mile-an-hour fastball on that last pitch. He rears back, fires a 2-2 that's slapped right to net eye. 1 away.
That ball was scalded. Nada made that look like much easier of a play than it was. Backhanding that sort of between his legs, gathering himself and making a clean throw. Cannot take those plays for granted.
Well, fielding has been Stanford's friend. Not so much for Wake Forest. Matt Conti with an RBI single in his first plate appearance, part of that 4-run 7th inning. That one misses maybe a little bit low to Conti for ball 1. Matt with a solo home run against Princeton on March the 2nd. On the ground, skips off Becerra's glove. Timo had a long way to go, couldn't put the clamps on it, and it's a base hit for Conti, who's now 2 for 2 today.
I would not be surprised if Conti has hit his way into the starting lineup tomorrow. Came on initially as a defensive replacement. He's gone 2 for 2 with the run batted in.
And now he is lifted on the base path for Mitchell Salvino, who has come into pinch run for Conti. Meanwhile, Javar Williams comes to the plate. He has not been retired today. Walk, infield single, 2-run double. First pitch from Keenan is outside for ball 1. Tom Walter admitted when he and I caught up before this series, look, my team hasn't played very well from behind this season. They were able to fight back after being down 5-1 early here and take a 6-5 lead, a 7-5 lead, check that. But now here they are playing from behind once again. Tying run at the plate. The 1-1. Count now 2-1. Salvino, the pinch runner at first. Misses outside. Back up the middle, Becerra dives, and it goes underneath his glove. Have a day at the bottom of the lineup, Javar Williams. He has done his job all day long. His third base hit, and he's reached 5 times, all 5 plate appearances today.
And of the 15 hits Wake Forest have had today, 2 of them have been for extra bases. Just a lot of medium hit ground balls up the middle.
One of those extra base hits belonging to Williams, that 2-run double in the 7th. The other, a double by Matt Scannell in the 4th. Back to the top of the order we go. It's Cam Nelson. Takes a fastball right down the middle. Nelson walked and scored in the 1st. 2-run single in the 6th. And hit that comebacker right to Trevor Moore in the 7th. That ended up being a 1-4 double play. And it was such a strange double play, too, because Moore, as soon as he gloved it, he hesitated as if he forgot that, A, there were people on base, and B, that there was only 1 out when the play began, and he finally recovered and threw to second, and it was a very close play at second. But the runner was called out there to complete the 1-4 double play. No balls and 2 strikes. Over Haskins' head. Salvino comes around and scores. The Demon Deacons get closer. It's 9-8.
Just bouncing ball after bouncing ball. That one's one of those classic sunken diamond choppers hit right into the clay. That one, just ground balls that are finding holes. Hard to think of a more frustrating inning.
Speaking of frustrating, Thomas Eagers coming out of the dugout. He's got to be super frustrated. It's been a tough ride for him for the past month. He's trying to plug holes in his pitching staff. And a few buttons he's tried to push haven't quite worked out. But now he's trying to figure out a way to hold off the Demon Deacons with the tying run at second and the go-ahead run at first.
And look who's coming up, Merrick Houston, who's always prone to come through in these kinds of situations. 1 for 4 today, walked back in the 8th inning, and he is as due as they come in these kinds of spots.
Houston left 10 runners on base last night. Just a mind-boggling number. Has left 2 on so far in this one. Wake with 11 runners left on base so far in this one, to go all with the 16 they left on base last night. That's been a big subplot for the Demon Deacons this weekend. Houston walked in his last plate appearance. Infield single in the 1st. Two on and 1 out in a 1-run game. Houston thinks about it. The appeal to first base umpire John Byrne, who says nope, he held up. One ball and 1 strike.
Ground balls like that. All outing today for Keenan. Ground ball single, ground ball single, ground ball single. A run scores. Go ahead run on base.
It's a gorgeous curve from Keenan, 1-2.
Houston's going to want to see that pitch again. So much movement, but that was right down the middle.
Misses high. Merrick Houston. Tom Walter says, as he goes, we go. Puts it through the hole and into right for a base hit. Coming around and scoring and tying the game. Javar Williams comes across, and it's a tie game again, 9 apiece, and the Deeks might not be done yet.
All 4 hits, ground ball singles.
Third base, Cade Lewis.
So first and third, 1 out for Cade Lewis, who's been a real thorn in the Stanford pitchers' sides today. 3 for 4 plus a walk. Back up the middle and through. Base hit. Wake Forest is in the lead. Cade Lewis with a noisy RBI single, his second of the day.
That ball came in at 94. It left the bat at 106 miles per hour, and that sees the end of Keenan's outing.
So Nelson scores. Houston and Lewis are aboard. And the bullpen for Stanford once again cannot put out the fire. New pitcher coming in for the Cardinal. His info coming up in just a moment. Back and forth we have gone. What a wild final third of this game it has been. And it's not over yet. Wake Forest leading Stanford 10-9. Back with the new pitcher on ACC Network Extra in just a moment. Well, Stanford thought it might be closing in on a second win in this series against Wake Forest, but the Demon Deacons with other ideas. They have pushed across 3 so far here in the top of the 9th inning to retake the lead. It's 10-9. Wake leading Stanford here in the top of the 9th inning. Ty Huber becomes pitcher number 7 for Stanford in this game. He's a senior from Cameron Park, California. Huber, making his 19th appearance, a 1-2 record, an ERA of 3.81, has 2 saves, 25 strikeouts, 17 walks, opposing batters hitting .206. And Huber threw an inning and 2/3 last night. Gave up a run. It was earned against Wake Forest. The last 5 Deacons have reached, and all via singles. Jack Winne will try to continue the party. With the breeze starting to rustle up once again here at Sunken Diamond, and the clouds getting thicker. Popped up. Long way to go for Nadi, but he makes the call in very shallow right. That's out number 2.
Any way you can get out, Stanford would love, under the circumstances, to go into the bottom of the 9th with a 1-run margin.
Looking ahead, it's the bottom of the order for Stanford due up in the 9th. 7, 8, 9, Lavin, Hott, and McDonald. Here's Luke Costello. Single was scored in the 6th, walked and scored in the 7th. A couple of strikeouts along the way. Pitch misses a little bit low, and perhaps a touch outside too to Costello. Luke was playing a pickup hoops game a couple years ago, and he tore his ACL. And actually missed a considerable amount of time, as you do when you tear your ACL. Luke lives in Erie, Pennsylvania. Cleveland's right down the road. His reconstructive surgery was done actually by the Cleveland Browns team doctor. 2 balls and no strikes. Now 3-0. Cleveland Browns have been busy over the last few days. Ending our national nightmare earlier today and drafting Shedeur Sanders in the 5th, 144th overall. The 3-0. And Costello walks on 4 pitches, sending the 9th different batter up to the plate in this inning.
Now batting the second baseman, Austin Hawk.
And right here, I think this is the most important plate appearance of the frame so far, especially in Huber's case. Austin Hawk, guy who put together a nice at-bat, driving in a run in the 7th. Bases loaded. Stanford surely feel confident about their ability to score 1.
Hawk sent one deep to center in the 6th. It was caught by Hott. Also an RBI single in the 7th. He later came around to score himself. Ty Huber, 6'4", 249. Pumps a fastball right down the middle, 1-1. Huber missed all of last year with an injury. Has been a vital part of the Stanford bullpen throughout his entire career. Big swing and a miss, 1-2. Bases are loaded. Waits on it and takes it, 2-2. Houston at third, Lewis at second, and Costello at first. Count full, with nowhere to put Hawk. Slow roller. Nadi throws to first, not in time. Run scores, and another comes in. Huber wasn't able to get to first base in time. And Wake takes advantage and extends its lead.
And no review coming from Dave Esker on that either. At least not that's been indicated. That was a ball that was grounded towards second. And Rintaro Sasaki came way off toward the right side. At that point, it was going to be Ty Huber. It was going to be no one at all. And now they're checking in on Hawk.
Yeah, Huber running at top speed to try to beat the throw. Nadi actually somewhat blindly flipped it towards first, hoping that someone would be there. And Huber was able to get there, but it was Hawk who got there first. And he drives in 2 on a ball that barely leaves the infield. Makes it 12-9. Hawk, okay, he stays in. And the Demon Deacons have batted around. Matt Scannell started all this innocently enough with a ground out to second. But then after that, can't even really call them floodgates, really. Just breaks in the dam here and there. Conti a single, Williams a single, Nelson an RBI single, Houston an RBI single, Lewis an RBI single. Pop up to second, then a walk by Costello, and now a 2-run single by Austin Hawk. Scannell fouls, tips it, 0-1.
And there was only one hard hit ball that entire inning, and that was the single by Lewis, 106 off the bat. But other than that, just a ground ball, nothing but ground ball contact.
One and one. 12-9. Wake Forest with the lead. Nadi again shovels to second, and that's the only out that he needs. 5 across for Wake Forest. But the rate this game is going, anything can possibly happen in the bottom of the ninth. 12-9, can the Demon Deacons get a big win here this afternoon? We'll find out in a moment on ACC Network Extra. In a game in which we've seen just about everything, what could we find here in the bottom of the ninth? Demon Deacons erasing a 9-7 deficit with 5 in the top half of the ninth. Stanford trying to answer and potentially win outright in regulation. They've got some work to do, down by 3. New battery in the game for Wake Forest. Jacob Burley, whom we saw for much of last night, is now the new catcher. And the new pitcher for Wake Forest is Reese Bowie, lefty, a freshman from New Jersey. 6'0", 185. Good numbers for Bowie. About to make his 8th appearance. An ERA of 2.25. Has thrown just 8 innings on the season. 9 walks, 9 strikeouts. It begins with Luke Lavin, who began the 8th inning with a walk and later came around to score. As Bowie's first pitch misses for ball 1. If you turned off this game and went away for a little bit at the end of 3 and Stanford had a 5-1 lead, and if you're just rejoining us now, you're going, wait, what happened? Well, the answer is a lot, especially since the 6th. Good breaking ball there, 1-1 from Bowie.
11 runs charged the Stanford bullpen. Is it a crooked number if the number is 1-1?
It might as well be. Pitch high, 2-1. Wake with 2 in the 6th to close it to 5-3. Then overtook Stanford in the 7th. Made it 7-5. Off the mound, deflects into Houston's glove, and he makes the throw to first in time for the out. Terrific adjustment along the way by Merrick Houston.
And that's the difference between how the top of the 9th inning unfolded and the bottom of the 9th. Low line drive hits the mound, turns into an out. A lot of ground ball hits coming in the previous inning. I imagine for Stanford it'd be very frustrating.
Ethan Hott with a couple of singles today, a couple of runs scored. Scored on a wild pitch in the 8th. Two and 0. Wake had been waiting for big innings in this series. They've finally gotten 2 here today at crucial junctures of this game. Right down the middle, 2-1. Puts a charge into this one into center. Nelson has a ways to go, but has a beat on it. And Wake is 1 out away. Well, Court McDonald won it last night. He's hoping to extend it here today. McDonald singled in the 2nd. And reached on an E1 on a sac bunt in the 8th. Later came around to score. That's a breaking ball that tails inside. 0-1.
2 perfect pitches.
And Bowie had a little bit of a strut in his step as he came off the mound after that pitch. The 0-2. Curveball up high. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Bowie seems to be a pretty emotional pitcher here. The 1-2. Fouled off opposite field. The 1-2 pitch. Missed somewhere.
And not by much.
Fires that one low and the count full. Payoff pitch to Court McDonald. Pops it up. Might be playable. Burley trying to locate it, and he can't make the catch. Pinned up against the netting, and the ball just somehow finds its way to the ground.
I thought that was going to carry out a play easily, at least a couple of rows back, but that one actually ended in the field of play. Burley just lunged into the net, which can be such a dangerous play. Could not bring it in.
And the game continues. As McDonald coaxes the walk and gets on base.
Now bats, the third baseman, Trevor Haskins.
Trevor Haskins with an RBI ground out in the 8th. Sac fly RBI in the 2nd.
That sends a couple of arms down to the Wake Forest pen. They're getting stretched out in case of emergency.
Big swing and a miss. Haskins was thinking of bringing Stanford to within 1 with that swing.
Challenged him first pitch.
Yep. Hit in the air to center. Nelson races over. He makes the catch in center. And that's your ball game as Wake wins a wild one. 12-9 the final score as the Demon Deacons strike for 5 in the top half of the 9th and even up this series against the Stanford Cardinal. 12 runs, 19 hits, 2 errors for Wake Forest. 9 runs, 11 hits, and no errors for the Stanford Cardinal. Wake now 28-16 and 11-12 in the ACC. Stanford now 21-18 and now 7-16 in the ACC. And this series now hinges upon tomorrow's result. We went back and forth. Stanford was ahead comfortably 5-1. Wake Forest was doing just about everything you possibly could to hand the opponent the ball game. Stanford was taking advantage, and then Wake erupted with 2 in the 6th and then 4 to take the lead in the 7th before Stanford struck back with 4 of its own to take the lead into the bottom half of the 8th. Stanford up 9-7 at that point, but then 5 consecutive singles for Wake in the top of the 9th, doing big-time damage. 5 across in that frame, all told, for the Demon Deacons. That's your difference. And unfortunately, if you're looking at this from the Stanford perspective, that's been Cardinal baseball. Looking good at the start and unable to keep their opponents at bay when it really matters most.
Yeah, and the most telling number from today is the 11 runs surrendered by the bullpen. I think some of that can be attributed to some poor batted ball luck, especially in that 9th inning. 5 across, only one of those baseballs was hit particularly hard. But at the same time, you got to start creating some luck on your own. Stanford today, I believe, only with one extra base hit. That was by Tatum Marsh back in the third inning. They got a lot of help in the way of walks and some errors, but still could not quite land that big blow. And all told, Stanford with the lead, but very few of those leads have been safe with how the bullpen has performed recently.
Yeah, Tatum Marsh with the leadoff double in the third inning. That is the only extra base hit for the Cardinal. Extra base hits few and far between for Wake Forest as well. In fact, just two. A double by Matt Scannell in the fourth and a two-run double by Javar Williams in the seventh. It's been death by paper cuts for both teams so far in this game. Matt Bedford gets the win. Reese Bowie, the save. Aiden Keenan saddled with the loss. And that brings us to tomorrow. Series finale. Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern here on ACC Network Extra. Chris Lavonis scheduled to get the start for Wake Forest. Stanford looking to TBD to try to stem the tide. The winner tomorrow takes the entire series. This one was wild. It was entertaining, and we hope you had as much fun watching it as we did bringing it to you. On behalf of our terrific ACC Network Extra crew and my broadcast partner, Carson Trail, I'm Troy Clarity. Thank you for joining us here this afternoon. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane, and accomplish greatness. See you tomorrow from Sunken Diamond.